Zero Foxtrot does not profess to share or promote the opinions and beliefs expressed by show host or guests. The Stay Zero podcast was created to provide a platform for servicemen and women to share their stories. Due to the nature of this podcast, sensitive topics will arise. Conversations about combat, PTSD, drug use, and other such subjects will occur. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the Stay Zero podcast. I have two special guests with me today, Giovanni and Dutch. Both of them have worked for years as undercover officers with the mob, with biker gangs, and other kinds of gangs. Thank you guys for coming in today.
Hey, Zach. Thanks for having us, man. Pleasure.
Awesome. How did you two meet?
I guess probably a halfway mark through our career. We came across each other at a training op we did.
Okay.
And I guess, it was kind of weird. We tell the story that it was unique. We were both in it. We were in a room with other operatives, other trained undercovers, and we were part of an elite unit for the FBI. So every once in a while, we get together to put candidates through a training scenario. And that's when Dutch and I we walked into a training scenario. I had a candidate, one of the kids that were in as a student. I walked in, and I think Dutch thought I was a bad guy. And then he scratched his head and thought, what the hell are they doing? They're bringing informants in now. And I'm looking at him and he's looking at me, kind of sizing each other up, because I'm kind of thinking the same thing, like, who's the dude over there playing cards? So from that point on, we just built a relationship, and it was natural. So we chopped it up after that training scenario and went out and we got dinner that night, and we had so many different similarities in our career. We were both law enforcement for so many years, both, cops in our own prospective departments, but we were task forced out to the government for so many years. And then from that, I think from that point on, it just kind of organically grew. So
yeah, and to kind of put that scenario into perspective, like I don't know how many of us were operational at the time, a few hundred probably, I don't know. So it wasn't necessarily uncommon that working at that level, you may not know everybody because it was international, national, and he and I had both been working for a few years at that time. So the group of people that you work with, the way that I look, the way that I carry myself kind of lent myself to a certain criteria, and Giovanni came from different criteria. I'm playing cards at a poker game in this scenario, which had its reason, and I seen him come up the stairs and walking and talking like he did, and I'm like, who's that guy? He stood out like as somebody, like, it didn't seem like he should be there.
Yeah.
He comes walking over to the table, sits down, takes the cards from the guy in front of me, and just starts staring at me, playing cards. We had a little bit of a, what do you call it? Confrontation.
Pissing match.
Little
flex.
peacocking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Recognizing the other alpha. And
yeah. You kind of perching up a little bit.
Sure.
He's right. Now that you're talking about it, I walked over to the guy, and just that New York way I had about me, and he wasn't familiar with my style. I wasn't familiar with his, but and again, having that biker background that I had, and I'm like, all right. So he's obviously the alpha. So I gotta target him. But at that point, it's not even I got a target. We were both teachers. We were both instructors. But just the way we carried ourselves, we were always in role, and it wasn't like narcissistic. It was always, all right, I'm always keeping my game sharp, right? Yeah. Like if you were a sniper, you keep your skills sharp. So I walked over to the dude, and he's sitting there playing cards from across, and I looked at him, I said, that hand sucks, and basically said out loud, now you can get up and give me my chair. And I just sat down from across from him and just locked eyes and just started, so where are you from, man? And he's like, fuck, like, what's going on here, man? And it was just this pissing match. And we had a laugh, and from that point on. But it was like, okay, it was the dynamic. Like, I could be an operator with you. I could see the dynamic right away. We can see the value we had in each other, right? And then, and as we talked afterwards, realized, we can actually use each other for bona fides. We had that initial, like when you meet a buddy in the service, and just had that instant connection. He'll always have your back no matter what. Yeah. And we had that brotherhood. We both came from PDs. We were both good cops, highly decorated cops, and then this was just an added layer of, yeah, man, I could work with this guy.
So y'all came from separate police departments, got kind of brought into the FBI in more of an umbrella operation that covered the whole country, with a couple hundred other undercover agents, I guess, and y'all would move around?
Yeah, so for me, I could speak to, so I was a police officer for 26, 27 years with a local PD in New Jersey.
Okay.
But out of that time, I was task forced out most of my career.
Okay.
Whether it was working with my own PD on a task force with the DEA, but then I quickly went to DEA task force, did years there. I was there till, halfway through my career. Then I went to the FBI. So when you become a full-time undercover for the FBI, that's a different dynamic.
What's that vetting process?
Oh, dude, you got to.
Oh man,
You go through the same process of applying for a job as an agent. They do a background check on you. They interview people because, again, we have to have the clearances. So to get those clearances, you have to get those TS clearances. So literally, like ex-wives, ex-spouses, they'll interview them. They'll interview your kids if they're old enough. They'll interview your neighbors, just as if you're a new hire.
Yeah.
And it depends on the level of TS that you have.
Right.
If you're going into the foreign counter stuff, again, it's 2 cops that we thought, yeah, we'll just work criminal cases. But then you don't realize once you're trained, you start doing foreign counterintelligence type stuff. And that's a different dynamic. That's a different animal. Now you got to turn over your bank records because now you can be a liability.
Sure.
So when you start playing in the sandbox when it's spies involved, and you never intended to be that way, but some of the people we worked with, when you start working global operations, you never know who you're working with.
Yeah, and I think you got to be careful going down the road of what exactly that selection process is like, but it's the things he described, but also there's a rigorous mental health and psychological evaluation that happens. Everybody wants to be on the team. Not everybody gets to be on the team. And they had basically over a long, long period of time developed, I guess what you'd almost call a scientific process for picking personality types, mental health types that they thought could survive in that world without being corrupted or being too empathetic, sympathetic, but yet not enough of either. Like, just because you made the team didn't mean you made the team. You may never go operational. Does that make sense?
Sure.
There's a personality check in there, I think, even along with other people that are working in those kinds of things. They get a little say in it, you know what I mean? They might be like, yeah, he completed all the courses and he did everything he's supposed to do, but it just don't vibe.
What do you think that personality is that they're looking for?
Well, I don't think there's any one specific personality, but I do truly believe that it starts with a mental perspective. You almost have to be somewhat sociopathic. You can't get too attached to anything. Sure. You can't be hurt by too much. You can't love too much. You can't be too scared.
Can't be too easily readable, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you need to have a very, not abstract mind. What's a mindset I'm looking for? But, an abstract mind actually wouldn't work. You need to be able to think and problem solve within seconds. You know what I mean? Like the scenario has been
very
built.
Analytical.
Hey, this is it. Yeah. You can't be over analytical. You have to just kind of roll on the fly. We train, you do everything you're supposed to do. And then they tell you everything's going to go just like this. And the second you walk through that door, it changes immediately. So you've got to be able to adapt to that. So I think that personality starts really with a really deep, like mental personality, a personality trait. Yeah.
Deep assessment.
And it's emotional. You have to have a certain level of emotional intelligence, I think, and not a disregard for life. Because again, we were hotshots when we worked as younger undercover guys. Then you were just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. I look back at my career, my early undercover days. I had no training. The only training I had was what I brought to the job from the street as a street kid, and what I learned in the projects growing up, and what I learned in low-income housing and working in those areas. That's what I brought. Then it was the DEA was and the federal government has different levels. Like DEA guys, they don't have that level of education that the FBI would bring. But once the FBI once you start working with them, because you never know what you're going to be in, right? And you really, truly have to, you might be in a situation right now, it just is, it's comfortable, and 2 seconds later, you're literally negotiating for your life, just to make it out of a room. So, and you never know where you're going to be sent around the world. So it wasn't like we had a team of SWAT guys outside and they were ready to hit the door. Every scenario, every op wasn't like that. Sometimes you're getting on a plane and flying across the world, or you're doing something in another country, let alone another state, and you are literally on your own. You get to the Middle East, you get secondaried, you get pulled to the side. You better know your background. You better know your social security number, all your identifiers. It's hard enough being yourself.
Yeah.
But now, at the end of my career, I had 4 different identities, 4 different social security numbers, dates of birth, credit histories.
It's a lot to remember.
And they're all different dudes. One dude might be a super high-end, businessman or for a political corruption type thing. And the other dude is just a street dude, but, doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together.
Why'd you want to do this job?
I have an addiction to adrenaline. I'll speak to I knew from a young age. I'm 3rd generation police.
Okay.
And again, I did everything as a kid. I should have never been law enforcement. I should have been dead or in jail by 25. I was very anti-authority. And it's just the way I grew up. And I kind of knew once I became law enforcement, I knew there was a burning desire in me. When I watched movies as a young kid, you know, yeah, I want to do that sexy stuff. That's good stuff, right? And then when you start doing it and you get a little taste of it, oh yeah, I want to do that again. It's the adrenaline.
There's
right?
definitely something to, like, I can either do it for the government or the criminals and be one for real.
Yeah.
But I can get away with it if I do hood rat shit for the government. So and that's how the teams were that I were in. Like, every one of us could have easily been criminals as well.
You're walking a fine line.
We just found a different pathway to do the same stuff in a context that won't get us in trouble.
Yeah.
I found that same emotion. I was always attracted to the outlaw world, you know, the rowdiness, the wildness, the
mischievous
stuff. But I had this internal drive where I was fearful to get into trouble. I didn't want to go to jail. I didn't want to disappoint people around me, but I was attracted to it. And this was that way to let it out, you know, because I wasn't trying to save the world. I wasn't trying to be a good cop or a hero. I just wanted to do cool, fun, exciting, adrenaline-filled stuff without getting in trouble.
Yeah, so listen, some people are good at music. Some people are good at art, right? You know, and I always say to people, we weren't paid to be liars. It's the art. We dealt in an art. That was our art. The art of deception was what we lived in, you know, and I was a good artist at that. I was good at my Tradecraft. So, and again, when you enhanced it and you gave me more products I would go down rabbit holes because again, you play off each other. And Dutch would say to me, you know, or somebody like him would say, listen, Giovanni, you got a tick or a tell, and this is your tick or tell, right? When you go in a room, my tick used to be my jaw, right? My jaw would protrude, my muscle would start, and or that vein is popping in your neck and it's just pumping. You know, and you have to control those emotions because if you don't, you know, that's what's going to cost you your life. It's going to get you a second look or something
Body
like that.
language is big.
Yeah.
I've had a guest come in that there's a number of books. One of them was an FBI interrogator named Joe Navarro, and he talks about how I'm not listening to your words. I'm just watching your body. Yeah. Does he look comfortable right now, or does he look uncomfortable? What might be causing this uncomfortability, right? Or what? And just learning to read people. And yeah, you've absolutely got to hide all of it.
Oh, you do.
You know, I worked in. I did a lot of Mexican cartel drug cases, and I could not speak Spanish. I could get through a drug deal in Spanish. And so I got very good at reading body language, voice inflection, how their shoulders are, which way they're staying, what they're looking at. Are they looking at the door? Are they looking at the door? Are they looking at the money? Are they looking at me? Like you said, you can sense based on that body language when someone's relaxed and you're okay, or you can sense when you need to start making an exit plan.
Yeah.
Something's not right. Even though I don't know what he's saying, I know something's wrong, you know? So that body language and reading that body language, that's very, very important.
Yeah.
But it's and I would go down rabbit holes younger. Like now everybody talks about breath work now and the importance of box breathing and breath work and recovery for your mental health. But I was doing that years ago because to get rid of my tick and my tell, all right, so what do I have to do? Because I was so involved and I was so invested in my covert world that I love doing investigations. If you put me on a homicide, I was driven. Any investigation I worked, but it was the covert world that I was just, that was my addiction. But then it was like, all right, so what do I have to do to hone my skills? What do I have to do to walk into a room and control the room? You know, I can't walk in like a gangster and just start screaming at people like I'm Tony Soprano. You know, you sit here, you sit there. There's just a dance. And I've also often described it's human chess. You know, somebody helped me understand, a psychologist helped me understand. I need you not to sit in that seat, Zach, when you come in. I need you to be in my seat. So he and I have to communicate non-verbally, and it has to be just this ballet of, all right, how do we get it? So he might see, I'm getting you to sit where I want you because the camera's over here, or audio purposes. And, you know, you have to think about all these different brains you have to use when we're operational. Guys just think you go in there, it's a cool scenario. You know, it's like a movie. You know, it's like the movie Blow. You walk in and there's coke all over the place. It's not always like that. You know, sometimes it's just a conversation.
But sometimes it is, right?
Sometimes it's boring.
It is, and it's exciting. Like you walk in there, but again, haven't been in these scenarios where, yeah, I walked into a warehouse selling guns, doing a gun deal, and you know, the dude cracked one of the boxes, and it was like, yeah, let's do a flash. We're going to flash these Glocks to these guys, and the dude that I was working operational with, he was with my unit. He takes one of the Glocks out and shoves it back in the thing, and it turns out they screwed the whole thing up because the flash guns were stamped, U.S. government on the side. They never thought we were going to crack the box of guns open.
Shit.
So what do? You crack the box, and this guy's like, yeah, show me your gun. I'm going to buy these guns. Show me, And now it's like, nah, we can't. Then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you better come up with an excuse real quick.
Yeah.
So, but that's what
these guns have COVID.
These guns have COVID. I can't. Yeah, you don't want to touch these. You know.
That happened to me too. Actually, we had a bunch of rifles laid out, M4s, AK-47s, all these different guns. And, you know, I don't know what Marine Corps boot camp's like, but on the buttstocks of boot camp rifles, they have in spray painted letters like A-23. I look down and I see it and I'm like, if any of them have been anywhere around this before, and one of them brought it up and I was like, yeah, we got lucky. They're like, what do you mean you got lucky? I'm like, one of the guys stole a Connex container off a train car. There was a rack M4s in it. And they were like, oh, okay. Yeah. But that's where we're talking about what's that personality trait look like?
Yeah.
Whoever had prepped that hadn't been through that experience and didn't know those numbers were going to be an indicator that was a government weapon of some kind, and you better have a story for it.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been briefed on it. I didn't know it because I hadn't seen them yet. But because of my life experiences, I was able to explain that away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like improv.
You have, that's basically
a lot of improv.
A lot of improv. But you can't go too far, right?
No.
You really have to, we often describe it, you have to control yourself. I have to know when my Giovanni, right? I call him and he says, you know, he'll say, I need Giovanni. I need the Giovanni to come out, which means, all right, he needs me to be real New York. And
turn it up.
I need to turn it up. So even if it was a bona fides where he was calling me on the phone, now I know when I answer the phone, I got to be a complete scumbag from New York. You know, I got to turn my New York upside, because he might be in a room with a bunch of guys that are, you know, SoCal guys or whoever they're from or cartel guys, and he has me on speaker, you know? So, and I know sometimes I'll just call him and I'll say, you know, I did it in a mafia case if we want to talk about it later, but yeah, I made reference to Dutch. Like, Dutch are you stupid? Like, you sell me bad product. This ain't for me. This is for my buddy Dutch. This is for my brother Dutch. I bring this to him. He's not coming after me. I'm painting a picture of Dutch. Then before you know it, he's actually involved in the case. They haven't met him for a year and a half, but they know of him, you know? And that's like, so if you're going to think about robbing me, or you're thinking about taking a shot at me in the street, just realize I'm not by myself, you know? So you better be able, and you better be able to sell it, you know, because now you can't threaten people. You know, we have criminal authority, but we can't commit acts of violence, and we have to, we have boundaries, just like military.
Where is that boundary for you guys? I mean, if you're being some of that can play into your credibility, right? If you're not willing to snort that line or punch that guy or do whatever, I'm sure it's gray. It'd have to be.
Yeah, you know, it's not. It's not. Integrity is integrity.
Okay.
And if you're the good guys, you're the good guys. You know, we aren't out here sleeping with sources and guys' girlfriends and doing rails of coke. It's all about how you bring yourself into it. You know, if you come in as the bottom guy, some tweaker or some junkie or something, they're going to expect you to do dope.
Yeah.
But if you come in as like, what are you talking about? I'm not touching that shit. No, I don't want to fuck your girlfriend. Sorry. No, I don't want to bang your girlfriend. You know what I mean? I got to put her on me. What do you mean? I got a wife. I got a girl at home. What do you think I am? You have to find ways around those tests, those interrogations that make sense, but you can't cross the lines, because then you no longer have integrity. And every testimony that you give from that point forward, swearing, I swear, so swear, I'm the good guy. Yeah. It has no credibility. So that's one of the things I think that's contrary to the public's view of undercovers. I'm not saying guys don't do stuff they shouldn't do. They clearly do. But sure, if you're going to be a professional, be a professional. You know, you go into that with a plan of, how am I going to avoid doing the drugs or passing the test? You know what I'm saying? That was exactly my perception. Like, if you're married, like, how do you go in here and have a completely different identity, right? Didn't you, I believe you said in our phone call that your family thought you were a construction worker.
Yeah, when I was younger, my kids didn't even have a clue.
Right.
No, I had that whole biker look, to the point when I was with the DEA, I had this whole biker look, to the point where I rode in on my bike and, you know, went to work on my bike. And that was it. My kids thought, because I worked construction on the side as a cop. So I did work construction. So my kids saw me doing all these things. They didn't know I was a police officer, like their grandfather and uncles and stuff like that. Yeah. They just looked at me as, you know, I came home with braids in my ear, and, you know, I went from hair down to my ass to shaving my head like a skinhead, you know. And then I had so much so that the DEA called me one day because my neighbors ratted me out. My neighbors called the DEA to say that I was trafficking dope, and they thought I was an outlaw biker living next to them, and they wanted me investigated because I was living in an affluent area in New Jersey, and it was just outside of Manhattan. Yeah. So what are you talking about? Yeah. And my boss was like, so what are you doing, man? And he was breaking my horns. He's like, so, you know, you went bad on us? You're dealing dope? So what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, your neighbors called it in.
It's my cover, man. I'm doing a great job.
I'm good at
it. You know, but sometimes that can go to your head too, right, Zach? Because now you go, oh yeah, man, they're believing it. Now you can go down a rabbit hole of thinking this guy I'm portraying, I let it let it control my identity, and I become that guy, you know, like, yeah. A lot of guys think, and I talk about it a lot, is you grow a beard and you put some earrings in and you think you're a badass narc, a narcotics guy. That doesn't make you a cool cop. That doesn't make you a good cop.
I'm sitting right here.
But that's
describing me.
But we talk, but see, this is who he is. This is who he is since birth,
yeah.
right? And it is who he is. He didn't grow this persona, You have to bring a little bit of that. Like in the mob stuff, when he asked me what my background was, my early days of undercover work, I thought I was an outlaw biker because I knew that culture through my mother's side of the family. That's what I thought I was going to strive for. But after you start eating milk-bone dog biscuits and you're sleeping in double wide trailers or sleeping on a bike, on the ground so your bike keeps you warm, that's a bullshit life. Like, I'd rather eat nice bowls of pasta and dress nice in $400 suits at the time and start to, but it came back to help me because when he asked me, so where you been all these years? When the mob actually called me up on the carpet on it. So what do you do? Like, where do you come from? What do you mean? Like, well, who are you with? I'm not with anybody. I'm not with another family. And I went into this big thing where I had to explain, no, my background's outlaw biker stuff. I just realized now after Superstorm Sandy hit and all this, I have a story, And I said, that's why I have Dutch. He's my brother from that life. I met him when we were kids or whatever the story is. He better be able to sell that story too.
So you both kind of served as like secondary authentication, like,
definitely.
Like helping each other with your back. Mm-hmm. What was the expected vetting as you came into a new assignment? Like, all right, I'm now working with the mob or I'm working with a cartel gang. This is how I know they're going to vet me.
Well,
and I've got to prep.
That is,
or do you know? Is it different?
It's different.
It is different. But I mean, if you think about everything that happens in the world right now, you need a social media platform. You can't just not exist. Mm-hmm. You can't be on you don't have an Instagram. You don't have
it's
Facebook,
more suspicious if you don't.
Right. You need to have some depth to you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I mean, I've even been vetted out so far as like, go rent a car and bring me the paperwork. What do they got? Your name, date of birth, driver's license number, all that. So if you're not working at a level where you have backstopped identities and you can pull that off, you better have a different plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you used to go down to Chinatown and get one of them knockoff IDs.
Yeah, my first one.
And, that's okay. That'll work as long as you explain it away when he brings a sheet back. Like, what do you mean this guy don't exist? And you'd probably have a great answer. Like, of course it don't exist. Where do you think I got the thing at? You know what I mean? So it's just about being prepared for that interrogation, not knowing what it's going to be and how they vet you out. Could be as simple as like do a line of coke, or it could be as simple as, go rent an apartment. And then in the name for us, go get us a trap house. So there's a lot of depth to that preparation. And I think as you mature in the undercover world, or even probably in the kind of stuff you do, you go through experiences where you go, oh shit, I wasn't ready for that. And I don't like how that feels. So before you just jump in and do something again after that, you put a little more time in it. You do your surveillance, you do your recon, you learn about the people, you learn about the neighborhood, you learn everything you can. And then you tiptoe in. And you introduce yourself softly and let that build.
Yeah, it's like I talk about it. I describe it as breadcrumbs, right? You just leave little crumbs along the way and let them sometimes see it. Like when you invite somebody over your house. When you came to my apartment, I might be doing a foreign counterintelligence case. It has nothing to do with bikers. It has nothing to do with criminal cases. It's all high-end foreign counterintelligence, spy type, or white-collar, political corruption. But when I asked you to come to my apartment and you walked in, this is the level of, I'm not giving away Tradecraft from what we were taught. This is the stuff that we added in. Mm-hmm. I walked around, or I had a big Rubbermaid container full of framed pictures. So when I had an asset and I had an apartment or whatever, I'd put pictures of me and him on a refrigerator. So when you came, it's like, wow, what's that? That's from 10 years ago. I was at a wedding. Well, who's the biker guy? It's a guy I used to run with. He's like family to me. And leave it at that. Mm-hmm. And those little things along the way let you know what I'm into, let you know, I let you see my life. And once you see that, they're in, they buy in. But you got to be real careful because along the way, I've been in situations where for 2 years we were infiltrating a place out in California, and the group one of the guys got out of a federal lockup, and he came out and he was a heavy hitter. He was like a sergeant at arms kind of guy and a security for the boss, and it was agent organized crime, and he came out with the chip on his shoulder. And he came over to us and saw us yucking it up with his boss. And he saw like we were kind of like at the same level as him, being treated nice. And the boss was giving us everything we wanted. He came over and he made it known. He says, hey, guys, don't get too comfortable. It's a late night ahead of us. We're all going back to my house doing blow and banging prostitutes all night. What do you say to that? You're in their house. So you better be able to put this guy in his place, but yet not shit all over him. So there's a fine line. Shit could break bad real fast.
Yeah. You got to know when to leave.
Yeah,
you got to know when to exit. You know, people used to ask me, like, are you afraid of dying? I was like, no, I'm afraid of failing. And it's not that I'm a tough guy and I'm not afraid of dying. Nobody wants to die, but you accept it. At some point, you accept it and you feel like, I say, well, I'm going to get a cool funeral. But you don't want to fail. You know what I mean? You don't want all these people that are watching you to be like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And you need an exit plan. You need to know, I did a skinhead case with some guns and a bunch of crazy stuff, and they were just too unpredictable. I mean, it was insane. My surveillance and security team couldn't keep up with us. They couldn't go where we were going. They couldn't do the things we were doing.
They're just zipping around on bikes at 200 miles an hour or what?
We were in a lowrider trucks, but we were going into like skinhead bars, you know, like nobody walks in there, like none of that kind of stuff. And it became an environment where, like, I'm being challenged at every single side, upside one, downside the other. I must have came in here too low. I didn't come in here high enough, which when we talk about our dynamic, that was the great thing, is when I got stuck and I needed an exit strategy, I'm like, I don't know, let me just call Giovanni, see how much money we got. I'm supposed to be buying these guns from you guys. This shit's crazy. They're hitting me. I need a break. I just need a pause. Let me see. Let me call Giovanni. And he'd know. Put him on speaker, and they've never been around a guy like him, so they shut up. You know what I mean? He was kind of like my escape plan. Give me a little bit of breathing room, just a little bit of time to process, like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? But there's never they always say there's never and never and never and always, right?
Right.
Was there any consistency within the culture? I mean, they all kind of have like a rank structure, right? It mirrors the police department in a lot of ways.
A hierarchy, if you will, right?
Yeah. What were the cultures like within those groups? Was there a lot of integrity, or were they all kind of stabbing each other? Did it
Depends
vary?
on the call. Yeah, it varied. Depending on the culture. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would expect if it's a family like the mob, there's a lot of integrity and a lot put into your word and loyalty to the family. But maybe a biker gang would be a little more wild and loose. I
think from the things I saw, the perspectives I saw, everyone preached, you know, keep your mouth shut, don't say nothing, don't tell, no matter what.
That's
even
bro
cops,
code.
Even the cops.
Even the cops. Playground.
Right.
Even the cops don't snitch on each other, right? But guess what? At the end of the day, everybody will justify in their own mind, well, he ain't got a family. Why should I go? I mean, he's been doing more than I should. Someone will tell. Mm-hmm. So there's these certain members of all these societies and all these groups that are standby, hard ass, gonna ride it out, ride or die, no matter what. And I respect it. But then there's these ones that are like, not me.
Yeah.
And every one of them has a weak link.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah. Turds get through the filter at every.
Oh yeah.
No matter how high level you are. Yep.
Yeah. The dev group, they've got their turds.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Without a doubt. And it's and you have to know the organization. You have to know, okay, what's my role here? Am I a guest in their house?
Yeah.
Because you better act as a guest, unless they open the door and let you in and treat you as differently, but you're just a guest.
What was your typical roles? I mean, you were mentioning, like, I came in too low. I got to be higher to have respect and to be able to move things and make shit happen, or maybe be a part of an operation that you may not be a part of if you came in right at the bottom. Like, climbing through the ranks is tough. What role do you aim for when you're coming in that you know could be effective?
For me, I always came in, I wanted to be somewhere like mid-level, but with a boss.
Outside of the organization.
Yes.
Oh.
I wanted to come in as somebody that was, for me, I wanted to come in as someone in the middle, upper echelon, but I wasn't the independent only shot caller, because sometimes you need an escape. Sometimes you need to say, well, I got to ask Giovanni. I got to check with the money. I got to, whatever, you know what I mean? But if you come in too low, you're never going above that.
Yeah.
If you come in buying 8 balls and teeners from the cartel, you're not meeting the cartel. That ain't the guys you want to meet. You're meeting one of their low level guys, and that guy don't even have the authority to bring you to him. So, you know, and even probably, you know, in a mafia culture.
Yeah, it was tough. You know, it depends. If I came in as a mid-level guy, if I was in a mob, I didn't tell anybody I was a mobster. Let them assume I'm from New York. I wear all the hardware. I got the pinky ring. I got the accent. I'm not telling you I'm with the mob, but maybe you think I am. Sometimes that would get me in trouble. If I was dealing with Eurasians, you know, Russian organized crime or Albanians or something like that, they don't really care too much for Italian gangsters. You know, they call us slickbacks or they call us something else, and you know, they refer to you as zips or they refer to you as a negative thing. I've had guys legitimately, like, I'm walking up to the diner and, you know, I'm sitting there with the source and he's like, oh, here he comes. Dude looks in the window and sees me, does an about face and fucking walks away. And he's like, I don't want to meet with that guy. I told you I don't want anything to do with those guys from New York. Nothing. So it's like now I have to ingratiate myself. So yeah, I might be a mid-level guy. Sometimes with the cartels, I was mid to upper. I was a shot caller so I could make the decisions, but you better make the right decision because especially with those guys, it's different. You know, they're your best friends today. But when they're out of money and bills are due or something, they're ripping you. You know, hey man, I like Dutch and Giovanni, and you know Zach's a great guy, but you know what? I gotta pay bills. I got a mortgage due. I got this. It's time to rob him. You know, and you never know when it's your day. You know?
Did that sort of thing happen?
Oh yeah,
robbed.
Yeah,
really.
Ripped. Yeah. When you're negotiating for your life, it's not a good feeling. Or sometimes I put myself in a bad position where I said the wrong thing, trying to you know, ingratiate myself for bona fides. And I got out of the car one time with a big beard and a hair, and I looked like a heroin addict, and I was buying off of a street gang. And, you know, I figured I could drop some racial slurs and they won't believe I'm a cop or something like that. And I told them what to do, go pound salt. And that did not end well for me.
That's another interesting thing, because you said, you know, where do you want to come in at? And sometimes marrying the other side, trying to be just like him, is the worst thing you can do. I was working on a gang task force, and we were having a lot of shootings, a lot of murders in a black community, which is hard to get into. And they said, we need a black undercover. And I said, no, you don't. And they said, why? I said, you can't send a guy into that community because they're going to like, where are you from?
Yeah.
Why don't I know you? Why are you here? So, but I could go there because they hadn't had that same expectation. Of course, nobody knows him. He's not from here, you know. All I did was just start getting my car detailed every week. Just showing up, being seen. First time someone asked me, you want to buy some Coke? And I'm basically, I don't buy none of that. What are you talking about? I'm just getting my car detailed. Blow them off. I'm not trying to be like you. I'm way above you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would be a good indication to get robbed if you come in too low or you try to be them, because they're going to sit there and try to vet you out. Instead, make them curious.
Yeah, be unknown.
Make them wonder about that. Like, dude, he rolled in a Cadillac. He didn't want nothing. He's just getting it cleaned. Why is he even here? No one would ask you, you know, and it builds that kind of, it's an attractive thing, you know.
Let their imagination tell the story.
Imagination tell the story. Exactly. So, and like with the biker guys, I remember I came in on the case, and let's be clear too, like the bike gangs, because they get pretty upset whenever they say the whole bike gang's in a criminal element and all part of crimes. Like, there's guys in there that are just doing the thing and riding and wearing colors and enjoying their lives. Then there's also criminals involved in these organizations that are doing more dirt than others. And so to class everybody into one big pool wouldn't be fair. But I never came in there wanting to put a patch on. I'd go ride with them and hang out with them and party with them because it was fun, and I wanted to build those relationships. But when they came to me and said, you're going to patch in? I was like, oh, no way. Why? I'm like, I got a business. I got a life. This is cool. It's attractive, but I don't want to be in this. I need you for these things. You know what I mean?
So the attempt was never to fully join in.
Not for me.
Just to
Guys
be kind
did.
of an outlier enough to gather information on what's going on.
Yeah, and you put the bait out. It's like fishing. You drop your bait in the line and you get a hit. Then you're like, you know what? I'm going to let it sit. I'm going to let it marinate, right? I'm not going to do anything right now. And the guy comes up to you and says, hey, you should patch in with us. I don't want anything to do with patching in, bro. It's hard enough being my own fucking boss. Like, you know, and then but it's like a guy or a girl in a nightclub where you're trying to date a guy or a girl, and you become more interesting to them, you know? And now you become like, Dutch doesn't want in. Why? Yeah. Now it's my job. I want him to be in because now that's the kind of guy I want. So you have to be careful of that. But it could really give you some good bona fides. You know, like, why would I want to be with you guys?
Playing hard to get.
And I also kind of learned by coming in, you fell under their chain of command.
Right.
You don't get to ask questions anymore.
Yeah. Well,
hey, go pick this up and drop it off there. Why? What do you mean, why? You're here, I'm here, we're in the same organization, do what I say. You've lost all of your power to build that intelligence or to make yourself step up. So you can lock yourself into a spot where, and that's happened. And if you do, you just have to stay in your role and introduce somebody new. And they get to walk up the chain and you don't. So if you're trying to get to the top and you want to do the cool stuff, you got to be careful not to integrate too deep. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Yeah, it's the same thing operating overseas with the military guys. When you try to ingratiate yourself too fast into a community or into a certain, I just want to be friendly. I need informants.
Yeah, you get too comfortable too soon.
Right.
You piss people off.
Yeah,
they start to question it.
Oh yeah.
Or they do the reverse. They bait you.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, okay, I'm on ground. Once I land on ground, now I got to get some human sources for me. Right now, you're hungry to get these human sources, whether it's a little kid or an older person. Now they're like, ingratiating you. They're doing the same mental mind screw that you're doing to them. So now it's like they're baiting you and they're reeling you in. You got to be real careful. But there's been some, operatives that go, yeah, it's my goal, like, to infiltrate them, become one of them, and then I want to write a book after. Like that's simply their goal. Is their personal
fame.
Yeah, my 15 minutes of fame.
Right.
And that's kind of sometimes that could be the worst thing.
Yeah, I can see how the social intelligence required to do this would be enormous.
Yeah, because at that point you're just a sociopath, just like the targets that you're going after. You're no different than them.
How much time would you spend on each one of these assignments? Would that be months, years? Would you have multiple going at the same time? Or this is what you're doing right now, or you're multiple identities and multiple assignments all within the same time?
Oh God, I was running
within days of each other.
Holy shit!
I was running multiple assignments at the end.
We both were. I mean, I might be on the West Coast in California doing something with over there, and then might be on the East Coast in Philly and New York City doing something totally different in different names.
Your brain's just in boxes.
And that was probably irresponsible, on my part. Yeah. I'm sure you'd agree. Like the problem is you get this like adrenaline dump that you chase it so bad that when someone comes to you and they're like, hey, we got this thing for you. And in your head, you should say no. You're like, somebody else might get it. What's this? Oh, I'm taking that too. You asked earlier if we'd ever been robbed, and I'll keep this kind of short, but I had been doing this long-term case at a car dealership in a Mexican neighborhood, and some cartel guys are involved, and we'd been working on that for a year and a half, probably at least, something like that. And this particular day, the way it started and the way it ended, but this is the day that particular part ended. I'm just kind of showing how the transition goes and how responsibly I should have said no, but I didn't. But we literally got into a shootout, car chase, head-on collision, foot chase. Our source had been murdered. There was a drug deal gone bad, turned into rip. Gang members killed him, shot a bunch of stuff up. People were hurt. All this stuff's happened. And I get into foot chase, and I had to come out of my undercover role and go into like enforcement role, because you can't just murders. That's the end of it. You're just done. You're done. There's no more intelligence anymore. That's
really?
It. Yeah.
Wow.
Long story short, I'm standing in the middle of Blacktop Road, and we just got done handcuffing the guy that was one of the shooters, one of the murderers, and my phone rings, and it's another federal agency saying, hey, we got a Zoom meeting for this Aryan case you're supposed to be working. And I was like, oh man, we just been in a shootout. Could we postpone it till Monday? And on Monday I took the case and I traveled again right away, right after that. That wasn't responsible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I couldn't say no. I love the adrenaline, Right. So I'm going through all this. I haven't even closed this out. This is a massive crime scene. There's tons of things happening. And I'm already like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll do it.
Wow.
And then it's the reintegration. How do you unplug from that?
Yeah.
Okay, now tomorrow I have to go be Joe Agent, and I have to go interview a guy, right? And my supervisor might say to me, hey, we have an investigation going on, and, like the Boston bombing thing happened, and we had to go to houses doing investigations. So now you have to put your investigator hat on. Now I'm supposed to unplug from that world and now go back to being Joe Federal Agent, and it's not easy. Sometimes the reintegration is hard. Because you can come back with an attitude. Like early on, when I was given a chance to work undercover, and then maybe I was put back into vice or major case, now I go back with an attitude because I want to keep my beard, right? I want to keep everything in my persona. God forbid I have to go operational again. So I used to dress up for parades in my uniform and just be over the top, like wear my earrings in uniform. I became so like anti-authority, like I became defiant, subordinate when I was young and immature. And then I'd be like, here, I got to keep my hair. So what I'll do is I'll put it up in a bun and I'll put it under my police hat for a parade. Just dumb shit we did. And you look back and go, man, I was so out of control. Like I was so, I didn't have control of my emotions, and I was a train wreck, because nobody taught us the emotional side of it. Nobody taught us. And again, I guess it was good for us because we had to go for mental health checks every 6 to 9 months anyway, when we operated at the level, because you're an asset.
Yeah.
You truly are. And you have to look at it as, look, you're a liability for the government. You can embarrass them. So they want to protect their ass too. So
how effective were those assessments? But you just learned all the answers to the quiz.
Oh, you took them too, huh?
Yeah.
It's 400 questions, answer yes, no, true, false. I haven't memorized by the time we'd done it for a few years. I'm like,
right. Like, I want to
see the
keep
same
working.
counselor.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to give you a fair assessment.
You're gonna
Yeah.
I
blacklist
know
me. I'm
I'm
going to be
fucked up,
benched.
but
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
killing it right now.
Yeah, I used to sit there and be like, so I had so much trauma early in my law enforcement career, homicides, kids dying literally in my arms, just
Really?
just terrible things that I never dealt with it. I never dealt with the trauma and the stress I had from it. I just wore it like a badge of honor and processed it like I was taught to, like my grandfather and my father taught me, and the cops that came before.
Suck it up, walk it
You
off.
go out to
suck
New
it
York,
up.
you drink all night in New Jersey. You go to New York, you drink all night in New York, and because the bars don't close. Then you come back to Jersey for mugs and eggs. You beat the shit out of somebody. You get in a bar fight. You get it up, right? Sounds like special ops guys, right? You just get rid of it any way you can, and you better get your ass back to work the next day because you got more. You got another tour coming tomorrow.
Keep yourself distracted.
Yeah. So I never processed that trauma, and like I talk about it now when I do my presentations, but I carried one of these kids for years and years. But I wore it like a badge. Like, I had my night terrors. I had this horrific smells and ticks and tells and, triggers. And I didn't know about that stuff until I became an FBI undercover. Because now I sat down with a psychologist, and the one guy, again, we had different psychologists that would sit and take a liking to us, right? And they'd be like, dude, you got a ton of trauma. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's just who I am. I let it identify who I was. He kept bringing up these different events, and he kept wanting to talk about it every time I went in. I said, dude, why do you keep bringing up the same shit? Like, you're triggering me. And then he was like, well, let's talk about it. Let's process it. And then he helped me process it. And then I realized how bad my trauma was because of the psychological part and the checkups, the checkup from the neck up type thing we used to call it. So those sit-ins, and I started the process of my trauma. I go, holy shit, I am a train wreck. But if I could take that trauma and harness it and mold it, almost like an artist. Now when I do a murder for hire, shit, now I know what brain matter smells like because of my homicide days or what I saw. Now we're burning flesh or crime scenes. And, now if I have to be a person that did the ultimate deed and took a life, I could describe what it's like. I could describe what a bullet sounds like to a skull. And that gives you that much more credibility in the cover world. It's graphic, but, when I sit down and go, okay, so you want to kill your husband? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to do it? Well, how can you do it? Whichever way you tell me. You can really turn that, like we often say, a true sociopath, you could see that black in their eyes. They got like those shark's eyes, and you can create that persona in yourself.
So how did you turn your trauma into something useful?
You learn to identify it. So, for instance, the incident with the baby, I carried that for 9 months. I was on a job when that happened, and then I carried it for years. It was a fire. It was a mom was a crack addict, and she left the kids upstairs, a 2-year-old and a 9-month-old, and left the kids upstairs. She didn't pay the bill, so she had the candles burning. She went downstairs to smoke crack with her neighbor. Obviously, everything went bad. The candles started a fire. The house burned. She got out, and her kids were inside. So I carried that around for a long time, years. And it would be like, I wore it like when I got married the first time, or I'd sit and have a movie and I could feel it. I didn't understand the trigger. But when I sat there and I had those night terrors, and I'd yell at night and yell in my sleep, or I'd be like, man, it's going to be a bad night. You might want to go sleep in another room tonight. It's going to be one of those nights. You could feel it. And I just wore it as like, yeah, this is who I am. Tough, badass, this is who a cop is. And I didn't understand it. I didn't process it. So once I learned it, and that dude helped me, because the guy that was the psychologist for the Bureau, he was like, so what happens? Well, what happens is it's my ex-wife's fault. Like, I'd say it's my wife's fault. She brings me to these barbecues. She wants me to be around English teachers, preschool teachers, lawyers, doctors. That's not my people, man. I want to be around cops. That's who I am. That's who I'm, wear police shit all over the place and wear, identifiers. That's who I am. So really, when I'm in the backyard and I become an asshole, I have a couple of beers, and apparently when I have a couple of beers, I'm an asshole. And he's like, well, what happens? Oh, I don't know. Maybe I tell some guy what and then again, I go, well, maybe some guy was an asshole and I told him he was an asshole, And then next thing you know, I'm starting an argument in the backyard at the barbecue. And he helped me realize, he says, so let's rewind. What's going on at the barbecue? I don't know. It's a backyard full of assholes. It's not my fault, right? And he'd be like, no, seriously, what's going on? And I don't know. People are hanging out, drinking, eating. What are they eating? I don't know. Hot dogs, hamburgers. See where I'm going? And he's like, so hamburgers. You got hamburgers cooking on the grill? So you think there's smoke coming from the grill? Yeah. So he goes, okay, what do you think that smells like? You think that smells like the baby you were holding? And I was like, oh shit.
Fuck.
Right, you're right. So he helped me out. He goes, look, it's a trigger. What happened was you're standing in a yard. It wasn't because you weren't drinking the beers. You know, wasn't because you couldn't socialize. You couldn't socialize because you were triggered by what you couldn't identify as a trigger. Mm-hmm. So now he says, if it's a burger that's burning, has more fat content, maybe you're triggered sooner. He says, so you have to identify it. Now you have to start doing what you can to mitigate it. And then he taught me how to do it. And then I would go home and start researching breath work and mitigating stress and trauma. And then, I became a better operative, but it also helped me to manage the trauma and redefine that trauma and compartmentalize it. And go, you know what? I didn't set the house on fire. Right. I didn't cause the events of that day. You know, and he helped me understand that. And then again, not to go on and on about it, but any event you're in that's a traumatic event. I did not put myself in that situation. My job did, and my career put me there. I didn't set the thing on fire, but I carry that baby's memory, and I might honor her. He said to me, maybe the mom is long dead. Maybe she overdosed or something. Now that baby's memory is kept alive because of you. So, you know, you just redefine that trauma. And now it's like when I feel it, I understand it, and I don't have those bad night terrors anymore. And I think about the baby all the time, but it doesn't trigger me the way it used to.
That's great.
Yeah.
That was something when I was working as a fireman that somebody had told me. I think it might have been my lieutenant or someone. It's like, don't forget that this is their problem.
Yeah.
Right? You were called to come and help if you can. You can't always help.
Right.
Right? But you were called because you've had some training and you've got some tools and some understanding to help people that are dealing with a problem. But it's still theirs.
Yeah.
It's not your problem. Don't take that shit home.
No. But it's hard.
It is hard. It's very hard.
You know, the hardest thing for me was watching other people be in pain. Like I had lots of dead children scenarios and stuff too, lots of that stuff. And I was able to handle that because, like you said, could disassociate from I was just a dead person, you know? But then I would see the mom or the dad or the brother or sister come up, and to see the tears and to see that meltdown happening, it would hurt me so much.
Yeah.
And I'd go home and drink half a bottle of rum.
Yeah.
You know, pass out, wake up the next day, brush your teeth, wash your hair, do everything you're supposed to do, and then go chase some adrenaline. Hope it happens again. What else can we get, you know? And I'm not saying that's mature or healthy, but at first that's what you do. But I think as I matured in my career and I got older and I started to see how unhealthy it is to drink half a bottle of rum after you've had traumatic events, I learned the best thing for me was to live by my routine. Wake up in the morning at the same time. Go to the gym at the same time. Don't take away from your routine yet, you know. Do your routine and then go chase adrenaline. Because otherwise you can get trapped in this like funnel.
Yeah. And you have to process it. You have to talk to somebody about it. You
We didn't have it then, though.
Well, we didn't have it.
Nobody
then.
talked to you about it.
We didn't have it. And that's why we carry it.
When you're in it, usually you don't process it. And that's why when guys get out, it fucking hammers their lives.
Dude,
you get blacklisted if you talk about it.
you didn't.
Yeah.
Giovanni ain't doing too good, you know, is that kid thing's bothering him.
Yeah.
Really?
Maybe you should put him on a desk for a while.
So there was that
That's the worst thing that
lingering
could
over you guys as well. Like you're going to get mental assessments, you're working and knowing in the back of your mind, if I fail this motherfucker, I'm riding a desk.
DNR, do not recommend.
It's called DNR.
You were afraid to be DNR'd. If you got DNR'd, fuck, you couldn't do any operations. Now
for how
what do I
long?
do? That depends on how bad you were. It could be forever. It could be, you know what, just take a little time on the beach, as they called it. You know, take some time.
Did they have any mandatory stand down time between assignments, or
no?
Every 1 year take 3 months off just to
No, Dutch described it earlier that in our unit, especially with the federal unit, there were a group of us. I'd say there was, like you said, there was a couple hundred operatives. But out of those operatives, there were guys that were like the elite units, like the guys who were the cream of the crop. And we just rinse and repeat. And we worked with each other. And it's like, hey, man, I got to do an op with you tomorrow. I got one with you tomorrow. I got one with you the next day. Or it was constantly, you were always bringing each other into these things. So there was no.
Everybody has a different role,
no
too.
Downtime.
No downtime. No downtime.
Well, say you're working counter-espionage. You're driving a Range Rover, working at a really nice job, living in a flat, the government's paying all your bills for you. How much downtime you need from that? Somebody's typing your reports up for you, you know? Guys like Giovanni and I were doing things with a high propensity for violence. In fact, if it didn't have a high propensity for violence, and that's not no bravado stuff, we probably weren't the guys they called, and we wouldn't probably want to do it. Like, we wanted that. And we're not trying to be crazy and anything like that, but like, I don't want to write it out in a consulate driving a Range Rover and go, that's a 9 to 5. That's not what I'm looking for, you know? So
equal risk and reward.
Yeah. I mean, we can be upset and, you know, I'm divorced twice and my kids are awesome kids, but they're crazy, you know, they're wild childs, you know, because they went through it with me, but
So
you can
had
regret
kids
it.
while you were doing this.
Yeah. I got divorced twice while I was doing it. I have kids.
That's tough.
But you know what? We talk about this. Me and I were talking about this morning, and he's like, I feel so bad because we'd work 18, 19, 29 days a month, because once you're in an operation, your biggest fear is you're going to miss something. They're going to hit a door today. I mean, I should be home because we got, you know, that wedding to go to or that birthday or whatever, but I don't want to miss it. What if something crazy happens and I'm not there, you know? And you just have this overwhelming feeling, and you look back in your life and you go, man, was it worth it?
What was the cost?
The guilt.
Yeah.
The guilt, I guess I'd say. I talk about that a lot, is the guilt.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing to shake, right? Is the not being there. You know, like anybody that's deployed overseas and then you're doing video calls for Christmas with your kids, that's traumatic.
Yeah.
You know? And at least you can be yourself.
Yeah.
With us, it was, you know, and again, it's just, you're celebrating holidays and Christmases. At the end of my career, at the level I was at, you're celebrating it with your family, but also with your crime families. And also those who send you cards and send you wishes and are texting you in the middle of your family dinner when you finally get home and you're supposed to put, here you are, man, you're still operational. And a bad guy might be calling you, hey, Merry Christmas, man, you know, and he doesn't even celebrate, you know, he's not even Christian, you know, and he's like, he knows it's my holiday and he has enough respect to reach out and say, Merry Christmas, you know, hope you're having a good day.
I hate to admit it, but it was harder to be home after a while. You know, because you come home and now it's like real life problems. Like, who's taking the kid to swimming lessons? And we've got parent-teacher conferences and you look like you're wearing Dickies and a t-shirt with a flat bill. You can't go to the parent-teacher conferences like that. You know what I mean? And like, I'm like, that's okay, because the phone just rang. I got to go anyway. You know, I got to go. Well, you regret it, but you can't take it back. You know, you can't concentrate on the past and you can't think about the future. You got to live in the present. And, you know, although my kids were heavily affected by it, we talk in depth now because they're all grown-ups and they're like, man, what an adventure, you know, because unlike him, I didn't keep it from them. So when they were young, we were pretty protective about making sure that they weren't running around talking about what daddy did and all that stuff. But these counselors and stuff, one time she said, you know, Dutch, what do you tell your kids you do? I'm like, well, they kind of know what I do, but we tell everybody I work in a funeral home. She's like, why? I said, because nobody asked any more questions after that. You know, like, what's your dad do? He works in a funeral home. Well, that's the end of that question.
Yeah.
But
that's
she actually,
interesting cover. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. I did work in one in high school for a while, so I could actually.
You had some insight.
Yeah. But she actually said something really important to me. And she said, your kids need to be able to have pride in you. So share with them, tell them, talk with them. Even though we're doing hardcore shit, you don't have to show them the violence and tell them about the violence, but you can tell the stories. And I think as my kids got older, they appreciated that, because then they knew who they could trust and be like, guess what my dad does? You know, instead of being, now they knew when to be like, hey, he works in a funeral home, he's boring.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't look like it. Yeah, he mows the yard and washes the windows and picks up the body. He picks up the bodies and stuff, you know, but they also knew when they needed to that they could take pride in that. And I know that made them feel better. And I'm glad that particular counselor told me, like, tell them, you know, like, tell them what you do, you know. You don't want to tell them you're a war fighter necessarily, but
yeah, something
honorable.
I can see how it would allow them to share in the mission and when they're feeling neglected.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, why is dad never here? You know, I came back from Kabul before we left Afghanistan, and I did the Naked and Afraid thing, and my 3-year-old came up and gave me a hug and thanked me for coming to visit him. And it broke my heart.
Yeah.
He didn't know I lived there. Like and as I thought about it, I'm like, well, fuck, of course he doesn't know that I live here.
Yeah.
I don't. Like,
yeah, no kidding.
I live in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I just come home for a month at a time and fuck.
Yeah.
You know.
But sometimes like now I realize, and I speak to that a lot, is the open communication. See, I had my 2 older kids, they didn't understand, but my 2 younger kids, I learned more as I became a veteran in this tradecraft, and I was a little more open. And it helped that my wife my second marriage she's a detective, retired, and that helps a little bit. And everybody goes, well, that's good because you understand each other. No way, dude. You know, it made it worse sometimes, because she's like, oh, you're out, just jerking around out in Vegas and, with your gangster. It could cause domestic issues. But with the kids, it's, I learned to just be open and honest with them. I don't have to tell them all the details of what you did and what you did overseas. Like, listen, mommy and daddy are doing their job. We're protecting, we're doing what we can, or I'm working overseas, I'm with the military, this is what I'm doing. You don't have to go into great detail because they already know, right? And that's the one thing I realize, and I share with guys and girls now. The more you try to shield them from it, they know you're bullshitting. They know you're lying because they go, I hear it. Yeah. I hear it on, I hear you guys talking. My kids used to be in the backseat of a car and I'd be riding and I'd be talking on the phone about cases or whatever. And, they're 2 years old, 3 years old, but they start to put the puzzle together.
Kids
By the time they're 5, man, they're resilient.
Kids are real perceptive.
But the guilt of it is, like we were talking about, some of the parts that haunt me the most is I put this job before my kids for so long. One of my older sons, he had called me in the morning and I was divorced and he calls me, he says, Dad, where are you? And he's, what did I say? It was in 3rd or 4th grade. And he's like, where are you? And of course I wasn't living with them. I was divorced for the mom. I'm like, what's up? He's like, well, where are you? I said, I'm working. Like, I'm literally, it's in the morning, I'm getting ready to brief for an op and I'm going into something. And I'm like, well, what do you need? He goes, well, we're waiting on you. Who's waiting on me? He says, the bus, the school trip. You signed up to be a chaperone. Fuck. You talk about a moment when I felt stabbed in the heart. I'm like, yeah, buddy. And this is a 3rd grade or 4th grade. I'm going, yeah, buddy, but I can't make it there. When did I sign up for that? Well, you told me you were coming. Remember we talked about it. Dude, my response was, well, just tell your teacher I'm not making it. Dude, I put it on a 3rd grade kid to go hang up the phone and say, my dad's not making it, leave without us,
Mm-hmm.
Like the guilt I carried for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And I still apologize. And he's like in his 20s now. He's like, Dad, let it go. Let it go. It was one time. It's, the time that we're talking about it, the time that I spent in my car with my kids celebrating their birthday, in my federal government car, my G ride, having cake and blowing out candles and opening gifts because I only had a half hour to do this, And I carried that guilt for years. And it wasn't until recently, I'd say within the last year and a half, that I said, guys, and I start making amends for it, all my failures. And I said to them, like, I really am sorry about all the time we missed out on. And it haunts me and it'll haunt me till the day I die and then thereafter. Like, Dad, we laugh about that all the time. Like, we laugh, and that's one of the biggest things. We still joke about the time we had in your car. For them, it was cool. For them, these little kids are like, it's a clubhouse. We're having this, like, almost like a little pup tent type of thing. And I processed it all wrong. So I carried that shit around for so long, and I abused myself and made myself feel so guilty. If I just would have had that open conversation, it would have, it would have healed itself already, and the scars would have went away.
We were talking about this morning, and I think it's really healing when your kids grow up and they tell you, like, it's okay, Dad. Like, he takes on so much guilt, and I did too, but, to have them give you forgiveness is very powerful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think humans have too much expectations of each other. You know what I'm saying? No one expects a perfect dad.
Right.
You're a hero dad to them, probably. You know what I mean? Like, they think it was cool. My kids are like, oh man, that was wild. I got to where I had to make them vigilant. I would train them. I'm like, hey, if somebody comes up, this happens, we're going to this place, take your brother, put them on the wall, stand their backs to the wall, and just wait. Like, we would, and that kind of like built them up. They're kind of like, oh yeah, we're like part of this thing a little bit. It wasn't to scare them, or they didn't. I wasn't teaching them knife fighting skills, or crazy like that. But just like, like, hey man, be prepared to be independent. You should be able to walk away with your little brother and be just fine in the city, and know who to call, and know how to get here, and know how to get picked up, and say where the last place you saw Daddy was, and what he was doing, and who he was with. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all I need to know. And so. Yeah. I think you can embrace them that way, but they forgive you, and that feels good.
And you bring them into your world a little bit, right? All the things that I learned, and I talked about the breath work, that was important for me at the after action when I retired and I got unplugged and I was being relocated. And, I went from being operational one day to being out of the mafia. The case came down. They did a threat assessment. I was done. It was no more. I didn't transition into retirement. It was just unplug, like you unplug a TV. You're done. And we don't know what we're doing with you yet. So for the time being, you're going to move safe house to safe house, and you're going to have your family with you. So I put my younger kids through a lot of trauma from that. And they were very, very hypervigilant, because they had to be trained in evacs. Like, imagine a 5-year-old kid. I'm training him out of evac at midnight in case bad guys came to get us.
Yeah.
And, so he had a lot of anxiety. So I introduced to him. So we're in these new homes, and he's thinking we're on vacation. You know, he's like, so when are we going home? Yeah, we're never going back to that house. We're done.
Wow.
You can't tell that to a kid. So eventually the anxiety kicks in. And, you know, when a little kid is sleeping in the middle of the night and you hear the little feet run in and he's shaking you in the middle of the night, scaring the shit out of you. You know, I'm hyper aware as it is. And then he's touching you and I'm jumping up. What's up? I can't sleep. I can't sleep. Can I sleep with you? And you don't want a little kid in the bed kicking your kidneys and whatnot. So I'm like, buddy, you know, you got to go back to sleep. So finally I taught him how to deploy the breath work. And I said, look, man, just do breath work. Do your box breathing. Go back in the room. If you can't fall asleep, come back in. But you got to try to do your box breathing. And
Can you teach me box breathing? What is that?
So box breathing is simple. It's just, so if you were to sit and you took like a cleansing breath, so it's 4 seconds you breathe in. You can go up to 4. I'd start at 4 seconds, but you can get to like longer. And you take a deep breath. It's not like you're going underwater, jumping in water kind of breath. It's just casual, as if you casual, relax your body. You could use chimes. It's something you could find online now. It's so easy to find.
It's like a form of meditation.
It's a form of meditation, but it resets your nervous system. So I teach it to everybody in corporate America and everything now because it's so important. It just refreshes you and resets your brain.
How long does that take?
Oh, dude, a couple of minutes, like 5 minutes of just sitting there. Sometimes. And again, we're first responders and military guys. What's the first thing we say to somebody when we show up at scene? And then so what happened? Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we give advice, but we don't use our own advice. So for 26 years, I was giving this advice. Hey, calm down, take a deep breath and then talk to me.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, right? So you're doing 4 seconds in of just sitting and you're just letting it, as if the air was a waterfall going into your lungs. That's what you want to feel like, just slow and steady. And it's 4 seconds in, you hold that breath for 4 seconds, then you let it out. It's not like you're blowing out candles. It's as simple as if the water's coming out of your nose and like a waterfall, the air comes out for 4 seconds. Then once you expel everything, you want to expel all that air out of your lungs and then hold it for an addition. Yeah, all the way out, every bit of air you have. And then what happens is you hold that for 4 seconds. So it's 4, 4, 4, 4. 4 in, hold it for 4, breathe out for 4, and then hold that empty lungs for 4 seconds.
How many times do you do that?
Oh, you do it for 3 to 5 minutes, and you should reset.
You see the dots?
Yeah, you will. Well, you shouldn't see the dots, right? If you're starting to pass out,
too long.
Yeah, you're doing it too long. And you could do it to chimes. You know, you could do it. There's different ways you could do it, but it's just a mindfulness technique. But it really does. It resets your central nervous system.
Breathing, man, we use it in our undercover work too. We call it taking a pause.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's got you cornered. They're starting to interrogate you hard. They ask you a question you don't want to answer. What'd you say again? Take a pause. Give yourself a brain to think. You were a sniper. I've never been a sniper. I've done a little bit of shooting. You know, that final pause, that final,
Sure.
Get your lungs in. Like, I think it's kind of the same thing. It just clears your mind out, you know, and gives you a chance just to like process. You know, we used it for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I never heard it called box breathing, but I definitely know what you're talking about.
Breath work.
I had a counselor and she'd be like, imagine your favorite color coming over your head and taking over your body and breathe in slowly for 7 and breathe out slowly for 7. I'm like,
but what about all the coke and the guns on the table?
Yeah, I'm like, this is
They're
stupid.
different colors. I love them.
Right.
both.
Yeah, but it worked. You know what I mean? I was like,
Right.
okay, I got this shit now.
But it really does.
Works.
It turns it. You
does
can
work.
turn it. I talk about it so much so because it truly is a superpower. Like you really are a DC comic. That is your superpower. When you have all these things on your belt and you have all these things and you're carrying rucksacks and you're carrying all this shit around as a soldier or a first responder, long before you're going to pull any of this shit off your belt, that's your breathing. That's your interpersonal skills and your emotional intelligence. That's what you're going to use first. Right. And then I realized when you're sitting in a room and you just vapor lock, right? We refer to it as vapor locking, right? And you just,
I've heard that.
And you get nervous. And then the guy's like, what's your problem, dude? You never saw 20 kilos of coke and machine guns before. You never saw dudes wanting to cut your head off if this deal doesn't go right or, you know, or have it. Like I was in a case one time, they killed a poor guy. You know, they killed him in front of the source to say, go back and tell your boss. If you steal from us or you want to, you know, try to play games with us, your boss is going to, meaning me, your boss is going to wind up the same way, you know, just to send a message. So you can sit there and start to vapor lock, or you could really turn into a superpower. Then I realized the New York in me, I talk fast with my hands, but when I was negotiating, I would just relax and just lock eyes and I'd be breathing the whole time because I was nervous as shit. But now I'm locked eyes and I go, all right. So just to recap, and you take those pauses and you become like a sociopath. This guy's looking at you like, dude, this guy's a sociopath. Like, what's the matter? He's a murder and mayhem kind of
He ain't excited at all.
And then you're like, so anyway, so I want to be clear. We keep calling them pairs of shoes, but I need to be real clear with you. A pair of shoes is 1 kilo. Am I right? And they're like, yeah. So think about the tape that you're making.
Yeah.
You know? So, or shirts or whatever we call them, like shoes. One shoe was, right shoe might have been a half a key or whatever. So just to be clear. So now you're making this, because I need to be very clear, Zach, because going forward, we're going to be business partners. And then this business venture, it's not like, we can't sit in a corporate room and if we have a disagreement or I can't have any misunderstandings. And all of a sudden, I'm actually doing my breath work as I'm speaking because I'm nervous. But I'm also having a cleansing breath so I can be very articulate and make a great tape. Mm-hmm. So that's when it turns into a superpower.
Wow.
We were in definitely a violent encounter. There was a shootout and I went operational and all I had was a baby Glock with 6 rounds. But I had a plate carrier, which wasn't strapped. I didn't have any mags. So I had a baby Glock, 6 rounds. And we're going to chase these dudes down this alley. They've just been in a shootout. And another guy's with me. Well, he don't have a plate carrier, but he has a rifle. I need him. He needs me. Yeah. We're going to move down this alley and he freezes. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, I mean, it can happen. It's just an emotional thing that happens when these things happen. And I just grabbed him by the front of his shirt and I said, breathe, walk with me, breathe. Once he got some air in his lungs, he was like focused in and he just followed along. I was like, just concentrate on breathing. I'm just going to lead the way. You know what I mean? I needed him as much as he needed me, but he needed to breathe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And once you started breathing, his brain came back.
Yeah.
It was so much happening. There was so much going on, and it's overwhelming. And you can get in this tunnel vision, and you literally start to hold your breath.
Yeah.
And even in a room when you're working undercover, and they're like, "Don't worry, Dutch. There's gonna be you and one guy. It's no big deal. We'll be out of here in time for lunch." And you walk through the door, and it locks behind you, and you realize you're in a really, really bad place. The first thing you do is you go. You don't want to let it out. You know what I mean? Because you're scared to let it out. Because once you let it out, reality hits and you have to let it out. And then, okay, I know where I'm at. I got this.
Yeah. And again, if you're going to do this type of work and you're going to deploy, you have to understand what your body's going through. Mm-hmm. You really do. You have to understand. And that's all called going dorsal. We say vapor lock because that's what our industry calls it. Oh, the dude vapor locked on me, man. No, we went dorsal. Like,
what is dorsal?
Dorsal just means you just shut down. Like there's so much overwhelming trauma. Like he said, that guy, he took his deep breath and never let it out. Like the dude's just shut down. He just mentally and physically, his nervous system it needs to reboot. And by him grabbing that dude, that rebooted his whole nervous system. And he was like, okay again. But when you realize it, again, like in this day and age with active shooters, I tell my kids all the time, they all want to go to the mall and I'm so against it. But I'm like, all right. I'm not a crazy over-the-top conspiracy theory dad, but I'm like, I need to know that if shit hits the fan when you're in the mall without me and you're with a bunch of teenagers, that you're going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So I don't go around and teach them like blood and gore and grab a fork off the out of the mall in the mall food court, kill everybody with the mall. Yeah, like if you're that kind of guy, dude, I get it, right? We have that quasi-military mindset, and we want to teach our kids, but sometimes it's just simple. You need to move.
Yeah.
When you hear a loud pop, I want to know. So I bring them and I sit them up on the second floor and I'll say, okay, right now, stop. You want to come to the mall by yourself? Right now, something happens and it's going on downstairs and you hear commotion. What are you going to do? You're going to run for the doors? You're going to run the way you came in? What are you going to do? I want you to think about, and that's situational awareness, right? And again, it's because the day and age we live in, you have to train your kids up a little bit. And I have to know, I'm like, dude, Pottery Barn? I learned enough shopping with my wife that all the deliveries are out back. So I know if I run into Pottery Barn, you go right into the storage and you go right out the back door of the mall.
Yeah.
That's your escape route.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking you is to have those. So that's the kind of mindset we used all the time. Where's your out? Where's your out? But again, being from New York, there's things I did when you went in one door and you went in the basement and the dudes walked you. And my team outside watched me go in 1, 2, 3 Main Street. But then they had the cutouts in the foundations. And then you went through 3 or 4 doors and you could walk over a half a block in the basement.
Wow.
And you don't even know what address you're in now. So you better hope your communication skills are good. Early in a career, it was like, when you get up there, just shit hits the fan, we used to hide a police radio. That was my escape plan. Get there, throw something through the window. If we see, the window break, we'll come in and get you as fast as we can. Dude, shit doesn't happen like that.
Oh yeah, we'd be wearing these these Kel mics. I call them Kels, like a square box, probably about about like that, probably, right?
And
they tape them to your skin, and it had a wire because it was a transmitter. That was our safety net. That was our chicken button, if you will.
Okay.
And they'd tape the wire like up the back of your spine, and there was a microphone that would come up the front. So now you're going to have to litigate being searched and wearing this box, which when you're wearing it, it feels like an anchor because you walk in a room and like they can see it.
Yeah.
I know it's there. They can see it. And there's a guy or two sitting in a Dodge Intrepid like 2 blocks down with the Pelican briefcase up, trying to turn the squelch just right to hear what you're saying. But you're in the basement of a brick house and everybody's smoking crystal meth. And you're like, chicken button, chicken button, chicken button, and nobody's coming. Because they can't hear you. They don't know what's happening. So you just learn how to do your box breathing, that you called it.
Yeah, get the hell out on your own.
Find your escape route. Learn how to talk your way out of it. Know there's no way to shoot your way out of it.
Did you ever blow your cover or have a moment that you felt you might?
I definitely have been in a scenario where I knew it probably was better not to go back. No one ever went like you for sure. Yeah. But you know that body language you're talking about, those voice inflections and everything, like you knew sometimes you were like, I wouldn't say with blue cover, some people just don't like you.
Right.
If you walk in a room 10 people and 9 of them like you.
That
yeah, one guy's just like, I don't know. I'm sure there's nothing wrong. I just don't like you.
Yeah.
I was what was I doing? So I had 3 different names, 3 different identities. And I was buying, I don't know, a pound of crystal meth or something. And there was a bunch of biker dudes. And we had been talking about steroids and testosterone injections and all this stuff. And I was keeping up the conversation. And some totally unknown person who had nothing to do with what we were doing, what we were talking about, goes, how old are you? Well, I had 3 different names, 3 different social security numbers, 300 dates of birth. But one thing's for sure, you've always been the same age. And it's the first thing that comes out of your mouth. I'm like, 41. Like, what? Right, what? 30. The one guy's like,
which
what do you mean? 37, 41. What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, take it easy, man. I'm like, we were talking about, I said, CCs. We were talking about how much tests run per week. I'm 41 years old, 37 a week. He's like, what do you mean? 37? No, 370 milligrams. Yeah. I just had to wing it. You know what I mean? But I was like, oh my God, man. Yeah. Like, I have a driver's license in my back pocket. I have an airline ticket laying on the counter that says I'm 41, but I'm 37. But, you know, when you're on a spot and you're being hit. Not hit, but like, they're not even trying to test you. They're just normal conversations. Oh, how old are you anyway, man? I'm 37. Oh, 41, 37, 37, 41. Didn't blow it, but definitely messed it up.
Oh shit moments. You know, I had lost my federal ID, my FBI creds. And again, I don't use them. So unless I was doing a house, so I didn't really worry about them too much. And then I was in the middle of an op and I realized they were under my seat of my undercover car. And I was in a mafia case, and one of the guys, he had dropped his keys. And he's like, where did I put my keys? And it turned out his keys fell under the seat.
Oh, shit.
And he's like, oh, look under your seat. I can't find him. And I was like, oh, shit. I got so complacent. I guess at some point when I was transferring stuff from car to car, and I had an Escalade, and sure as shit. And I looked under, thank God it didn't fall under his seat. It fell under my seat. And I was like, oh, shit, there's my creds. I put him back under the seat, and I'm like, ooh. Other times, I was pulled up to, I was doing a dope deal in a mafia case I was in, and my crew, I was running a crew by that point, and one of the guys that was answering to me or kind of working with me closely, he had called me, and I was on my way to my office in Central Jersey, and I had a little spot, like Soprano-esque spot, it was in a construction company, and, it was a little setup where I did deals and stuff. And I was just about to go live to do it. I was buying I don't know how much, 1.5 kilos of Coke. And the dude was going to meet me at my office. So I got complacent, and it was nighttime. It was a winter night. So I was like, I pulled over in a gas station, and I pulled over by the air pumps and the vacuums. And that's where I went live. And I took the device was in my belt, and I went to put it. And now, being older, and my eyes are going, I got to wear cheaters, and I'm not wearing cheaters when I'm undercover. It's like, nobody's ever going to see that I'm weak, So I'm trying to get these 2 little, prongs to go in this hole. And I'm like, oh shit, I can't see this thing. So I pull it out, and I put the dome light on, I pull it up, and finally I'm trying to get it. And as I'm doing that, my passenger door rips open, and it's Whitey, one of the guys and he goes, give me all your fucking money. And he had his baseball hat on backwards, and he had his big leather coat on. And as I did it, I took the wire, and you could see, and I shoved it under the seat. I was like, oh shit. And as I reached under the seat, he goes, whoa, G, it's me. Don't shoot. He says, it's me. And I go, well, what are you doing? He goes, I've been behind you for a couple miles. I saw you and I got the girls in the car. And he was running prostitutes at the time, dancers. And he said, I got the girls in the car. And I said, that's my cousine. That's my cousin in front of me. Yeah, I've been behind you since the highway. I saw you pulling the gas station. I thought something was wrong. So he was behind me the whole time. I got so lazy. And I was like, oh, shit. So he thought I was going to shoot him. And thank God. If he would have walked up to the car slower, like a gentleman, like a gangster would have, he would have saw it complete, and I'd be dead. You know, he would have pulled out a gun and probably shot me.
Wow.
You know, and that was my boss's son. So by that time, we were up on a wiretap because he and I were supposed to do a couple of murders for them, and we were listening to the conversations. So the next day on the wiretap, he calls his father, and he's like, "Hey, did G tell you what happened last night? I scared the shit out of him. And he almost shot me." You know, I was like, "Oh man!" But he goes, "He should have shot you, you fat bastard. He should have shot you." You know, but
we were
again,
talking about them kills. I was walking up to a crack house one day, and these things, they'd put that like white athletic tape on you, and you get to sweat, and man, it's hot, you know, and it's in a crack neighborhood. It's not good. I don't even know why I'm there. I think there'd been a lot of gang murders, so they wanted us to like hit some of these trap houses and take some of these gang members off to curb the violence. You know, take them off on a crack case. We'll stop some of the killing. And like he said, you get lackadaisical, you know. I'm wearing a pair of long shorts. I look like I fit the part, and I got this kill barely strapped to me here. I'm sweating, and we're walking up to the house because, of course, we parked like 3 blocks down. We're walking up the house, and we get up there, and this kill falls out of my pants and lands on the blacktop right in front of us. He stops, I stop. We're just both looking at it. He goes, "What's that?" And I'm like, "I got diabetes. That thing falls off all the time." I took the back of my pants, took the black wire, stuck in my pocket, and we walked in the house and went to crack, and he didn't ask a question. Yeah. But yeah, that's a close call, you know.
Fuck yeah.
you got to sell it.
But shit happens, and you got to have something.
Hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Remember the chirp
Improv.
to talk? Remember the chirp to talk Nextels?
Yeah.
Those are the greatest things ever. I wish we still had them. But
It's like walkie-talkies.
Yeah, they were great. Well, our surveillance teams were using Nextels. Chirp to talk. And I had my drug phones, dope phones, I called them, my Boost Mobiles. And I had thrown this phone in my console, and I forgot to turn it off. And I picked this dude up, and we're driving to go pick up a bunch of shit. And we're driving, and he says, "Hey, man, let me see your phone. I need to call the guy and let him know we're coming." And I don't know what I did, but for some reason I reached in and I grabbed the Nextel. And I thought I was being smart. Like, I'll have him call his guy from my phone. We'll have his number. We'll be able to identify together. I think I'm being smart. He's like, "Yeah, we're on the way to cut the grass." He hangs up, and he's leaning on the truck, and he's got the phone in his hand like this. Also goes, "Prp." He's like, "Yeah, they're westbound on Harrison, turning left at such and such." And he's like, "Whoa, man, what the fuck is that?" And I grab it out of his hand. I'm like, "You better hope nobody heard that." And I turn it off. He's like, "What?" I said, "I told him my dad owns the biggest construction company in the metro, and they use Nextels to coordinate everything. You better hope to God he didn't hear what you were saying to that guy." He's like, "No, I said cut the grass, man. I didn't say nothing." I'm not saying I'm smart, just lucky. Yeah, close calls.
You got to be intelligent to
real
pull that
close
shit
calls.
off.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But your skin color can't change. You can't get that carotid artery pumping you in the neck. You got to sell it.
Yeah.
You got to sell it, and you got to sell it right. You know. So yeah, you're panicking and go, "Oh my God." So again, that side of your brain is going, "Oh my God, he knows westbound. He knows that's cops."
Yeah.
You know. And the other part is I got to make you convinced that that's not what that was. You know, it's insane. And sometimes it's just, listen, it's by the seat of your pants. You know, early on in my career. Same thing with the transmitters. I was doing a gun deal and a dope deal, and I was in a McDonald's. And, you know, I was with some old salty cops, narcotics cops that trained me up and gave me my, you know, cut my teeth. And we just did wild, crazy shit, you know. And there was no plan. We didn't come up with an ops plan. And it was just like, all right, man, just, you know, let's hope for the best. You know, don't get killed, you know. And it used to be, all right, listen, if I do get killed, you know, don't put my family through a trial. Don't worry, we'll clean it up. You know, like, don't worry. And we were old school cops. And I walked into a McDonald's, and I'm talking to these two guys, and he described that white wire was your transmitter wire, the receiver, and then you had your microphone. And as I'm talking to these dudes, and I knew the one guy was armed, and I'm buying guns and dope off of him, and, you know, when you catch your eye and you look down at your side, and my whole microphone was dangling by my pant leg, and it was a white wire of all colors, and I'm like, oh shit. Like, as I'm talking to him, I just kind of blade my body, I roll it up, and I stick it in my penny pocket on my pants. I finish the deal, it goes out, and I get back to this, you know, I go back to debrief, and I'm with my bosses and my squad, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you hear that? That was crazy." And they go, "Hear what?" I said, "What happened, man? My wire fell. You didn't hear it scratching and whatnot?" And they were like, "Man, we lost you like 2 blocks before you went into the Mickey D's. And then what happened was the transmitter that we had was picking up the McDonald's driving the girl in the drive up, welcome to McDonald's, can I take your order? And they were picking that up on the transmitter.
Shit.
That
seems like such a huge liability that having these recording devices on you at all.
Well, it was the best they could do at the time.
At the time,
you had asked earlier, like, what are you allowed to do and not allowed to do? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, we're trying to collect evidence for prosecution.
Right.
And these ain't nice people. They're hardcore dudes. And they've been in court a lot. And the U.S. attorneys finally came and they're like, if it's not on audio and it's not on video, don't bring it. Because people don't trust cops anymore. Just because you swear and you got a badge, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So you have to, and since then things have gotten better. We're talking about how it was and how I can't even imagine what they have now. They've got better capabilities,
As our ability to gather evidence has improved, our reliance on it has gone up.
Oh, God.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm not doing away.
We have DNA now.
Yeah.
Right.
And we should rely on that type of forensic.
Thank goodness.
Right.
Sometimes
what we had was good enough, but there's a better way now.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
We started out when it was cassette tapes, and you shoved the cassette player and then you heard click, because the end of the tape ran out, and then you'd have to go to the bathroom and flip it over.
Turn it over. Yeah, no kidding. You're sitting there and
you have to pee every 30 minutes on the dot.
It's crazy.
Click. You hear it click, and you're click, and you're like, oh. Yeah, you run in the bathroom for a second,
cranberry
flip
juice
it over,
kick it in again.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, we did some dumb shit. Think back.
Wow.
And nowadays, you could put a microphone on an ant's ass. You can put anything on. So, or you don't even need to wear them. You just go up in the sky.
Yeah, the game's different.
Now
it's
a different game. But yeah, it was some archaic shit. That's why I say I lived in a world of payphones, pagers, and calling cards. Like there was nothing better.
Yeah.
But again, you have to change. You have to adapt with the times too.
Mm-hmm.
You have to adapt with technology, and you have to have a reason. You asked earlier about like social media. Like I'm a guy where I go, I'm in my 50s. I don't do social media. Or sometimes they're like, yeah, but you have to have a platform when you go into some cases. Like when I was dealing with foreign counterintelligence guys, remember MySpace?
Mm-hmm.
That was big for videos.
Mm-hmm.
We go overseas and they like, they're all the way on the other side of the world. And then we want to have a meeting. It was on MySpace. And like, oh, you got to turn your camera on. No, I'm not turning my camera on. It's okay. It's encrypted. It's all this. And we gave you this stuff and you could turn. No, I'm not turning on. You got to be able to sell it, But it's crazy. Crazy shit. So.
When you were talking about guilt earlier, I want to roll back around to that. I was curious. I mean, guys that operate within gangs or even within the police department, there's a very tangible code of trust and brotherhood that I would imagine you'd have to tap into to be accepted by those organizations. But knowing that you're going to betray them, were any of those relationships that you built real for you? And did you feel guilt for that betrayal? Because you're kind of in the background, like I'm playing both sides, right? Like I'm here to gather, I'm actually working for them, but I've got to convince you that we're willing to die for each other.
Right.
And did that ever become difficult to work with?
Sometimes I know for a fact, and not trying to overtalk you, but sometimes I felt closer to the bad guys than I did the good guys. And it wasn't anybody's fault, except I was spending more time with them. When we'd go do an operation, we were so separated from everything. We have a briefing. Let's say there's 12 to 18 guys, girls, whatever, a surveillance team, a takedown team, somebody's got an evidence team, and we're the undercovers. We meet with the case agent. They brief them. They don't even meet us. We go do the deal for 6, 8, 10, 12 hours, and we go to our hotel by ourselves. So the relationship with those people, they were very real. And I could sympathize. I think it was good for me because early on as a cop, I thought, lock them up forever.
Sure.
They broke the law. Forget that. Who cares? That's your job. We catch them. They lock them up and that's that. But when you start to work in those capacities and you learn those relationships and you start to empathize and sympathize.
Meet their families.
There's some massive guilt that comes with that, man. Like, locking somebody up for 25 years is the same as taking a life.
Yeah.
And you watched, I remember meeting little kids and mothers and girlfriends and all these things, wives, whatever. You'd see them have a sense of pride, like, look what my business is doing. Not outside of the criminal stuff they were doing, they're still living some kind of a real life.
Yeah.
And you would start to feel bad about that. And you realize once they're locked up, there's no contingency for that family to earn income. They don't even know how the business works. They don't know where the money is. They don't know who to call. And that person's taken out of their life, locked up in a holding facility at the U.S. Marshal's office, and they may never see them again, not behind bars. And that's a very terrible feeling, honestly. I remember there was a guy I was working with. He was in a certain club, and we were doing pretty massive drug deals, and he came up to one day. He's like, Dutch, bring me in. Bring me in. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I want in on this. I'm like, man, there's nothing here for you. And I'm telling you, I felt like I was protecting him. And he had told me his story, and he was a special forces guy, and he was setting some explosives in one of the places overseas, and something went wrong. He broke his back, and he was on liquid Oxycontin, and it had been supplied to him by the VA.
Just call that heroin, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was also getting food from the food pantry for his family because something else had happened and his benefits were being denied, and it had been like 2 years. And he was like, I need money. I need to feed my family. At that time, I could offer to buy his liquid Oxycontin. Could have indicted him. Could have wrapped him up in a federal indictment. No problem. Would have been fair and square. He had it. He wanted to sell it. That was that. And I was like, man, there's nothing here for you. I don't know if that's a right thing. I don't know if that's a righteous thing. I don't know if it's a wrong thing, but it's a real thing. Mm-hmm. And it is personal, Mm-hmm. And that guy, I'm sure he would probably cut my throat to this day for betraying the people he was with. But I genuinely at that time thought, he don't need to be a part of this. Like, I don't know if he deserves this. I don't know if he's a criminal or if he's desperate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a difference, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the discretion is great and should be used in that way.
And long-term is different. When you work in long-term operations, you do ingratiate yourself to the family. Depends on what you're doing, right? You're invited to events. Like the Mafia case I did, or a few of the cases I did, but that one specifically I identified with the culture. It's the same culture I grew up in.
Yeah.
So it's a sense of family, a sense of pride, and it was very recognizable to me. And for that reason, and it's funny because I've been judged by other guys that have come before us and be like, well, you got to have the emotional, you got to have the fortitude. You can't get caught up in this nonsense. If you don't get caught up, then you're a psychopath.
Yeah.
When you're around these people and you go, it's not just the crimes that you're committing. It's when you're not committing the crimes. And I know my capo in my case, my boss that I was reporting to out in Vegas, I'd go to his house, and I was truly like a son to him, and I treated him as like a father, and we had that relationship. And, by the end of it, it's the little things. It's hey, it's 116 degrees out here. Take 2 bottles of water out of the garage when you leave,
Yeah.
Take your water. I'll get it, but I'll get back to no, take the water. You got to stay hydrated. Sounds stupid, but it's obvious that this murder mayhem type of guy that the government thinks he is, you're seeing that softer side of him. You're seeing that family side of him. They always remind you though, when they walk in and it's like, the spouse or the family members go, oh, Giovanni, you want a cup of coffee? I know what you like. You like your 4 shots of espresso and a latte, and I'll make it for you. And, and these people are cooking things the way you like to have your breakfast cooked. They're going out of their way to show that they love you.
Yeah.
And then they say they love you,
Yeah.
Or the kids, I write about it in my book that, I was in a capo's house one time paying him kick-up money. And it was like the second or third time I was at his house paying him. And his granddaughter had walked in, and he was so proud of her. And he's like, hey, tell your cousins, because I was with my boss's son. And he says, hey, tell your cousins, your cousins, about the good news. And she's like, oh, I got accepted to the college I wanted. And she's all happy. And, next thing you know, you're caught up in this family moment. Everybody's kissing her and hugging her, And that's the way the culture is. Mm-hmm. It's your cousine. It's your family. He's family to us. Tell him. And then you're hugging you're hugging a girl, congratulating her. And meanwhile, your daughter's the same age as her. And you're like, man, this sucks, man. This is so shitty, And then the aftermath of, they always remind you, again, the guy asked us to, kill people for him and for the family. So that side of it's okay. But at the end, when they're like, and then the agents are coming back and they're laughing. They go, yeah, when I hit so-and-so's house, he tried to pass off his phone to his wife. And he said to him, call Giovanni right away. Tell him, get out. Tell him to run. The guy's getting locked up and he's still looking out for me. Now, I don't know whether that's out of fear of my status with the boss or he doesn't want it coming back on him. But at the same time, these guys, it's hard because the agents are like, yeah,
they're not pretending.
They're not pretending.
That's
and
their life.
They're kind of, and or the worst thing is, Zach, when they go, hey, Giovanni, it's Friday. Do you really got to do an op on a Friday? Yeah. The guys want to see me on a Friday. We're going out to dinner. And where are you going to dinner? I don't know. It's a place in New York. We're going to have dinner. Oh, so you're going to have a nice 5-course meal? I don't know. Well, eat your bowl of macaroni as fast as you can and don't fuck around with your friends. I want to go home. I got a family too. I got to get home to.
And that's real too.
Really? That's your attitude? We're on the same team here, bro. We're all for Team America. Do you really think that these guys are becoming my friends? Or they see your persona, or they see that, again, you have to go in. You have to turn your switch. And I'm going into this thing, and don't be too long. I'll be as long as it takes. Well, you don't need to, these are your friends. But dude, these guys aren't my friends. Why are you talking like that? I'm on this team. I'm on Team America. I know who I play ball for.
So you were catching some flack from other guys on the police side
Your surveillance
that were
teams.
supporting you on these ops or these meetings or this time. Did you always have support anytime you were in contact?
No.
Well, I mean, there was a briefing and there was a surveillance team.
Yeah, you had to do an ops plan.
And in defense of those guys, because we've been on surveillance, it sucks, dude.
Yeah.
We're in here eating dinner, drinking, partying, hanging out, having fun with the people that we like. They're jealous a little bit.
Sure.
They're also like, my wife's on my ass. We're supposed to be off at 5. You're in here having spaghetti till 10 o'clock at night. I was supposed to take they're missing their kids' shit too,
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be clear on one thing, because we both talked about sympathy and empathy for these people. A lot of them I liked. They were fun people. They're fun to be around, and they were just making bad decisions. But there's a few I have no remorse for.
Yeah.
Pedophiles, people that committed certain crimes against other humans that were so horrific that you actually took pride in, like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Normally I'm just chasing adrenaline, having fun, but sometimes they'd come to you something and you're like, oh man, this is intense. You got to get your A game on, because this person is evil.
Yeah.
I mean, evil.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's members of your own team. I did cops. I did dirty cops. I paid cops to commit crimes for me. They thought I was the mob. They thought I was a gangster. So, here they are committing crimes for us, and at any moment, I'm literally paying them for their badge, for the authority, the same authority I pledged and held my hand up and took that oath. They took the same oath. And at the same time, you want to choke the shit out of them and throw them in a can. But you're sitting there going, man, at any moment, this dude could do a reverse on me and clip me, pull his gun out. You are literally saying, I'm going to pay you. Let me see your gun. Let me see your badge. You don't get paid until I see it. And when they sold their soul, that's a different kind of, so I took pride in that. Like anybody that wore the badge.
So what would be the outcome of that? I could imagine there could be a situation where you get wrapped up in that rabbit hole, or you get spun up in who's playing what role, and you could blow your own cover by turning in a cop that thought that you were mob and was trying to get money from you, or...
No,
could that be a risk if
he could switch it, flip it
for sure, or right, yeah. Once he finds out that maybe you outed him,
right, or he's a source, like he thinks that you're a source and you're a rat and you're going to destroy his life, so he'll flip it on you and say, "Oh, I was doing it undercover. I was reversing these guys," and you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah,
I got no remorse for police officers that betray the badge.
No.
Now, and I'm not saying that they can't make mistakes, do something wrong now and then, but I'm like, if with intent, they wear that badge as a wolf in sheep's clothing, then they're bottom of the barrel to me. And dirty cops.
Many of that?
I'd say probably one of the biggest threats that ever came to my life was from a police officer.
Really?
And I was laundering money for a cartel group, a very large cartel group, and I'd been buying tricked out cars, like $80,000 cars, and they'd write me a bill of sales for like $10,000, $15,000 they would know, like you said earlier, like, just so we're clear, this is my drug money and I'm going to give you this much money and you're going to give me a bill of sale for this so I can sell this and I can recap my money and put it in the bank. Like, we understand each other, right?
Laundering money.
Right. So at some point, the agency I was working for says, we got him wrapped up, don't pay him. Like, what do you mean don't pay him? I owe him like $84,000. Yeah, just put the thing in a storage unit, right, and don't pay him. I'm like, well, I got to live in the street. And he's going to come looking for me. Like, yeah, you got, you're backstopped. You're good. So I'd gone to a firearms instructor school, and I'd met a couple of guys that were not into the program that I was into, didn't do anything that we did. And we were just tactic stuff, just shooting. That's all it was. We became friends. So this guy, Steve, calls me one day and he says, hey, Dutch. He says, funny thing. I'm like, yeah, what? He goes, I was walking by a desk. He says, detective. He says, there's a picture on his desk, but it ain't you. I'm like, oh, yeah? He said, it's me. He goes, but it ain't your name. Because he didn't know what all I was doing. I'm like, yeah. And I said, well, is he dirty or what's he got it for? He goes, I don't know. And asked me questions. I'm like, well, go ask him. You know him? He's like, I don't know him. Because, if you get in an apartment, 900 guys, you don't know everybody.
Sure.
See, and it wasn't wasn't one of my departments. It was a guy that I went to a school with from another department, and he had a picture of one of my IDs on his desk. So he goes back and he calls it back in. It's like, hey, Dutch. He says, he's got 3 IDs now, and he has your real name and your real address. I'm like, what? Why? Go ask him. So he goes over there and he says, I'm just trying to recover a stolen car, a repo thing for this repo company or whatever. He comes back and tells me, they shut down the operation, 2-year-long operation. We hit a bunch of search warrants. They shut everything down. They decided the guy was dirty. He was actually working for them. And he said in the investigation, he spent more time, including collecting overtime, doing research for these guys than he did doing his own job. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So he was dirty, and he got indicted along with the rest of them. And then they came to me and they said, hey, what are you going to do with this guy? I'm like, what do you mean? They said, well, you want to lock him up forever? What do you want to happen to him? I'm like, I don't know how to handle that emotion. Mm-hmm. That's not I don't know. I don't know how to handle that guy. I don't even want you to put that pressure on me.
Yeah.
I don't want the one to decide what happens to him, but he's not a cop. He's not one of us. He's not on the team. He's a bad guy. So put him where the bad guys go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know whatever the outcome was because it wasn't important enough to me, but a dirty cop can be the worst thing that could ever happen to you, And so I don't know.
Yeah. When you know you're being hunted by the good guys, that's not a good
scary
feeling,
thing.
dude. That's not a good feeling at all.
By your own team. Yeah. That's a scary thing.
I had an incident. The government had to put pole cameras up in my neighborhood because there was a hit on me from law enforcement, from within law enforcement.
Really?
Yeah.
What was behind that?
A buddy called me and I got too close. I did a RICO case with some guys and I did an investigation. It was way too close to home and these cops were involved with them and they were kind of protection.
What is a RICO case?
The racketeering case, like when they do big, it's racketeering. It's like racketeering influence corruption. It's a case where they get everybody from the bosses to the lowest level and they do a big case. John Gotti was a RICO. He was a racketeering case. So because I was doing all these mob guys and I was hitting some sensitive spots that were tied to law enforcement. And I just had somebody call me up one day, a good friend of mine. And he's like, hey, man, you got a minute? I said, what's up? He's like, hey, they're looking to do you. Just get out of here, man. And listen, I'm third generation, man. Do me how? They're going to beat me up? And he's like, no, they're looking to do you. They're looking to hurt you. I was like, man, that's crazy. I said, listen, this ain't 1970 something. This isn't Serpico, And I kind of hung up and I was like, bro, I appreciate it. No, listen to me, G. I'm letting you know that it's serious. And I kind of blew it off. And I was like, man, get out of here. So I'll never forget. It was April 1st and I'm walking in. I was off duty and I was FBI at the time. And I walked in and I was going like to BJ's or a Costco with my wife. And as I'm walking in there, and the guy gave me specifics. And he was like, look, man, this is how they're going to do it. They're going to set you up. They're going to put you here, here, and there. They're going to use a high-ranking cop to do it, to put you where you need to be. And I got a phone call, and it was from a chief. And he was like, yeah, bad news. I got to do this, and I got to put you here and there. It's like, what are you talking about? And the hair on my neck started standing up. I was like, oh, my God, I guess this guy's serious. So, yeah, it was a legit threat. And then I wound up hanging up with him, and I called the government. And the government, the FBI, they sprung into action like right away. They jumped to it and they called the AG's office, the attorney general, got them involved right away. And then they actually, verified the threat and realized and,
wow.
It was
How
crazy.
did that play out?
So they sat them down and basically, hands off this guy and they kind of scared the shit out of them. So it kind of went away. But yeah, when you realize you're being done by your own, law enforcement's going to look to hurt you.
But for the record, 99% of these men and women are wonderful people doing a great job, not for the money, not for any other reason, and their true, deep desire to serve. You know what I mean? Like, it's important to talk about corruption and bad cops, but it's really important not to forget that 99% of them are wonderful people working really hard.
You feel like the corruption or the bad police are still the exception and not the rule?
I definitely.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, without a doubt. I would say it's like, listen, it's pretty much null and void when it comes to, yeah.
That's what all the movies are about, right?
Yeah.
All the
it's
shows.
all just dirty.
Yeah.
But that affects public perception.
It does. It definitely does.
Well, it's crazy, right? Because when we first got here today, you had said to me you watched The Departed to prepare. And that scene in The Departed where the corrupt cops, and there was a leak We had that in a mafia case with me.
Really?
Yeah, and they had a leak. They had a legit leak, and they didn't know where it was coming from. And it unfolded throughout the case. And I found out, like, yeah, it was the same thing as the scenario in that movie. It was like, yeah, we know there's a leak, but we just don't know where it's coming from.
Did the mob know that there was?
The mob was the one that told me.
Did they know that there was a cop operating within their organization as well?
So I had showed up early in the case, and I showed up at a social club to drop some swag off, some knockoff stuff. I was selling stuff in the street, like, Ugg boots and Timberlands or whatever they were, and cigarettes. And I had dropped some stuff off at a social club, and the guy asked me, "You want a cup of coffee?" And I was with an associate of mine, and he went in the back to make the espresso. And as he's making it, he says, "Hey, just to let you know, you guys are new around here, but you specifically, G, you're new, and you just started showing your face, and we got a phone call that the bulls are looking at us. The bulls being law enforcement." And he goes, "We're being looked at, and we know we're being looked at." And he's making my espresso, and he goes, "So just to give you a heads up, like, you guys are new, so." Not saying anything, but we know we're being looked at, and the government's looking at us. So, and I go, what are you telling me this for? You got something you want to ask me? As if to say, you want to ask me if I'm a cop? And I go, I don't understand. What does that have to do with me? I'm just saying. No, I don't know what you're saying. And I got a little bit aggressive because, again, you have to know how to survive in this world. And I don't understand what you're saying. Why don't you say what I don't get it. So he laid it out, and he goes, no, I'm just saying there's a leak in law enforcement, and somebody leaked back to us that we're being looked at. Okay, what does that have to do with me? I'm just saying you're new. Okay, but what does that have to do with me? And he goes, I'm just saying, be careful. And now he kind of like pushed back a little bit and stepped away, and I went, all right, I got him, because he goes, I'm just saying to let you know to be careful if you're coming down in this neighborhood, we're being looked at. So now all of a sudden he wanted to accuse me of possibly being a rat, but he just like backed off a little bit, and I was able to just let it mitigate itself. But throughout the whole case, yeah, there was a leak. Throughout the whole case, there was a leak. And then we didn't find out until the end of the case. It was actually one of the mob boss's wives that would leak. So she was, she wound up being a leak throughout the whole case. And she used to work for the government, and she had gotten access to some information, and, so it wasn't like a true law enforcement leak. It was like a support role, like a secretary was leaking stuff to her. So,
wow.
Yeah. So you never know where it's coming from. So here you are thinking, oh my God, I got a dirty cop out there. Meanwhile, it's not a dirty cop. It's a support personnel who was a bad egg leaking the information back. So, yeah, so you got to be real careful, because in that case was now shut down to a red file, which means anybody inside the bureau couldn't even access the case to look at it, to read it, to review it. So now you're like, oh shit,
Were you ever concerned about like the roster of names for undercovers being released or being uncovered? Was that even a consideration or a concern? That's a big thing in the movie, right? Is they're all trying to figure out who the uncovers are so they can kill everybody. But yeah, I didn't know if that was something that you were really...
No, I wasn't really afraid. I don't think I could say I wasn't afraid of it, because we had, again, you had multiple identities.
I don't know. For me, I don't think there was a roster that existed.
No.
There's very few people, even in the large areas where I worked, that actually worked undercover. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that most of the fail safes we had in place to protect our identities from law enforcement wasn't because they were fearful that they were bad or wanted to hurt us or hurt us, but because they may accidentally or unknowingly give up information that, that they're down there getting the tires swapped out on their personal vehicle, and they don't know who they're talking to. And they're like, yeah, we got a guy. He looks like this. He walks like this. This guy's nuts. You know what I mean? I think it was probably more of to protect innocent.
Yeah, between the two of us, I didn't know his true name for years.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Really?
We didn't know each other's real names.
Okay.
Like, we just knew, like, okay, what name are you using? Well, this is the name I use. And then it was finally like, well, what name do you go by? Is that your real name? No, it's not my real name. Like, I don't know what we were doing. We were going to some place and traveling for like the government and doing a training thing where, like, I was like, what hotel are you staying at?
I thought we were in Vegas.
Oh, it was Vegas. It was Vegas. It was a mob case.
And you go through the paperwork, and we had numbers assigned to us, not names, other than our identities that we knew each other by. And I think you took a phone call.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean?
I forget, I got you rooms or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, so what's your real name? This is years after friendships.
Yeah.
I'm like, so what's your, what's your real name? No, it's just, like, that's a fucked up
It's a
name.
weird thing. It's a weird thing to cross that threshold.
I can't put that name
I don't
anymore.
Like, don't tell me.
I don't want
Terrence.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what?
right? It's kind of like that.
I showed him a picture of me in uniform when I first came out as a rookie with the flag and a badge and all this shit one time. And he goes, don't ever show me that shit again. Jeez, don't ever show me that again.
Yeah. It's scary.
It like gives you like an uneasy feeling when you're doing the stuff we're kind of doing. I'm like,
yeah,
you got a Christian name,
right?
It's a weird name. But I'm the Giovanni.
Right. It's really strange. It's and again, the cases we were doing, even when I didn't do cases, I did that white supremacist case, and I was with these dudes, are hardcore white supremacists. But I did it as an Italian guy. Like I was down in Atlantic City, they came down to meet me, and there was another undercover into them, and the undercover brought them, and they kind of like and again, the case agent was like, dude, listen. This is the heavy hitters. These guys are the heads of these different organizations. They're all coming together for a reason. They're coming to meet us. And there's only 4 guys coming. And the case agent was an expert on these groups, on the white nationalists. And he's like, look, man, don't get caught staring at their tattoos, their hair triggers. They'll go off in a minute. These dudes show up, man. They got tattoos, SWAT stickers in their ears, on top of their eyelids and their lips. And one dude had a tattoo across his head that said racist. And they're like, do not, don't get caught looking at the. So again, my mentor is there. I'm fairly new at these cases, and, it's your survival instinct. So my buddy's there, and I'll call him Pino. Pino's sitting there, and we had 2 analysts with us for bona fides, 2 like hot girls that we were supposedly, out on a date with, and these guys show up. They multiply like gremlins. By the time they show up, they got this one big dude. He sits next to me. He's twice the size as him. I'm like, this dude is like fucking, he was almost the same size as you. So, the dude's like sitting next to me, and he's tatted out. I mean, he's got tattoos on his face, jump boots and jack boots on his face, and all kinds of crazy shit.
Would you fall asleep at a slumber party?
Right. And again,
of course he did.
The other undercover that brought him in, he sat down with the dude and starts introducing him, and he had a scully on, a black skull cap. And, here's my mentor, my rabbi that trained me up. And he's like, gee, don't, let's stay in our lane here, man. I don't want anything to pop off. We're in Atlantic City in this Roomba lounge inside the Tropicana. And he's like, can't have anything happen in public, man. So right before they show up, we had a support undercover come in. And he was like just a hang around guy. He comes in, man. And he's an experienced dude. He's worked all over the world. He comes in as white as this printing. And he's like, dude, it ain't good. You guys are here, and it's not good. It's not good. And we're like, what's the matter? Dude, they multiplied like 10 of them coming this way. Like, it's not good. And you could literally see them walking across, because the machines are literally shutting down as they walk by, because they had the most racist stuff on it. And they got all this crazy shit. And they come and sit down. The big dude sits next to me. And I'm like, fuck, how are we going to survive this? And I go, what does that say? And I could feel my mentor like kicking me. He's like, what are you doing?
Shut the fuck up.
And I'm like, what does that say? What is that thing on your head? Oh, nothing. And the minute he goes nothing and he pulls his hat down, I know I got you. Body language and human interaction. I go, no. I got to see what you tattooed across your forehead. And I knew what it said. And it says racist. And I'm like, does your mother know you did that? Now I'm judging you.
Yeah.
And now I really feel like, I could feel him like he's ready to blow the whistle and call it. And I'm like, why would you do that? Look at it.
Yeah, how do you function into society today with that?
So I need to point this out before he finishes his story, because I know this guy.
The big guy next to me is watching.
But this guy that he's messing with had a guy tried to kill him, shot at him with the AR-15. He was on a dead man's trigger, didn't have one chamber. Click. Guy took off running. This guy grabbed the gun away from him, beat him to death with it. This is the guy he's saying, what's that say? Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you. I want to put in your head.
And I didn't know
how bad this dude is.
And I'm like, yeah. So, and that dude was like, he was getting real standoffish. So I was like, so anything, I mean, these guys were absolute lunatics. And by the end of it, we talked them into staying at the hotel and getting rooms, because we were going to do business with them and whatnot for the case. And this dude, I don't want to say his name because he's known in that community. Yeah, and he's now sitting next to me, and I'm like, so what's your deal? I said, what do you mean, what's my deal? So, same thing, bro. Tattoos all over your face and shit all over you. The fuck, you got no self-respect. I'm sitting here in a $200 Robert Graham shirt. These guys are weird. I'm like, you got no, what the fuck? What's wrong with you people?
Yeah.
You people. But again, this is survival. I'm setting the bar.
Sure.
And that's what I mean is you have to read the room. I can't take all these guys on, but I have to make them realize, like, I got an army. This is my house.
You're not intimidated by
everybody
the art.
knows, right? Yeah. Everybody's seen casino. We run the casinos. Now I got to let you know we're mobbed up. And I'm like, so, what's the deal with you? He says, I'm here for him. If he got any problem, all right, calm down. Listen, we're all getting along here. It's business. He goes, well, I just want you to know, I'm here on parole. I broke my parole to come here. So why'd you do that? Make money. So he starts telling me, yeah, I broke parole. I got bit by a bum, right before I came here.
Bit by a bum?
And that's exactly my response.
Exactly.
And that's my response. I go, you know what? And he says, yeah, I got bit by a bum.
Got rabies
yesterday."
now?
Yeah.
And he literally says, I get bit by a bum, and lifts his shorts, and he's got this huge piece of flesh missing from his thigh inside, but it's wrapped in paper towel. It's bloody and nasty and with duct tape.
Keep bums off your
And I'm
dick
like,
and you won't have it.
Yeah.
And I go, God damn, hey, Pino, you got to see this, man. This guy's got a bum bite. Stand up and show my boss your bum bite. Get up, show him. And again, it's this whole persona.
Yeah.
So, and inside, that blood is pumping, and my breathing, fuck all that breathing work. I'm ready to pass out. And I'm like, stand up. Now he starts telling me, as he stands up, he says, yeah, that's that, but that's nothing, bro. It lifts his shirt up. He's missing organs from being shot with this M4 AR.
Wow.
Starts describing that. Night ends with us going up to a room, and they wanted us to know that, hey, listen, anything you guys need, we're willing. Let me show you how committed I am to and turns around and closed fist punches his fucking little guy in the face, the little guy that's with him, and just bloodies all over the room and bleeds all over the bed. What are you doing? I just want you guys to know we're serious and we're committed to what you want us to do. If we got to kill for you, we'll kill for you. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you don't have to do that. So I get him downstairs, and again, my emotions are going. I was like, come on, let me get you guys a room. I'll check you guys in. I'll get like 3 or 4 different rooms. I get him a room, and I swipe my credit card, and I sign my true name, because that's just trauma, trauma and stress. And I sign my real name, clear as a bell. I'm like, what the fuck did I just do? I'm like, but again, you got to be able to recover from that. And the girl's like, okay. And I realized quickly, if they get that bill, and it's a time when they still slid them under your door, in the morning. So I'm like, oh shit. So I real quick realized that, hey man, give me that back. You know what? I used the wrong card, and I recovered from it real fast. And I'm like, nah, give me that card back. Use this card. And one thing leads to another. And I finish, and I call him, and I'm like, hey dude, I had this funny op last night. I got to tell you about this, and this happened. They were going to kill one of their own that night, and we stopped that. And he's like, who is the guy? And I use his name. And all the way, I didn't know who this
tattoos.
Yeah.
On his face. And I was like, I know who that guy is.
I know who that guy is. Like, that dude is, he's a serious guy. You never know who you're meeting with, Things take a turn. And it's, then you go home, and the adrenaline dump is, man, how close you came to like these guys snapping. And then when we're in the hotel room, somebody knocks at the door, on my door. Like, we're having this little meeting when they punch the shit out of each other. And it's the dude of a major, outlaw motorcycle group. The president from that area is banging on the door. And I open the door, I'm like, what's up? And you could see this dude. And I'm like, I know him. And I'm like, what's up? He's like, oh, so-and-so here? Yeah, but we're in the middle of something. Who are you? He's like, well, I came here to say hello to my brother. No, you're going to have to wait downstairs. And I slammed the door in his face, because it was that quick. It was like, man, if I let him in, things are going to get out of control so fast. So just to give you an idea how we operated, and then here I am. He tells me, holy shit, dude, this guy's like a famous in that community. But just to end the story, we're at dinner that night, and I bring him to the Palms restaurant, which is like a 7-star restaurant, and I'm like, so what do you want? My guy's sitting next to me and says, hey, what do you want, man? He says, I don't know, man. It's a little too fancy for me. And he grabs the menu, and he can't read. So he's looking at it, and he goes, hey, man, I don't know what I want. And I start to see him. He's getting upset. It's like, all right, relax, man. You never ate like this before? What do you eat? You like seafood? You like steak? And I could see he's not reading the menu. I said, pick anything. And he got angry, and he pushed it away. I said, bro, it's all right. I'm dyslexic. You can't read, And again, he goes, yeah, I don't read, man. I don't know how to read. And I said, all right, no big deal, man. You want me to order for you? He goes, yeah, will you order for me? I said, sure. You like surf and turf? He goes, I don't know what that is. I said, lobster, steak. Yeah, I could eat that. Yeah. So the food comes out. Dude from West Virginia is down here head at the table, and he's watching me the whole time. Man, he did not like me. Even though I ingratiated myself with the most violent guy in the room, that dude did not like what he was seeing. And I turn around, and the surf turf comes out, and these dudes start eating, and they're breaking the steak apart, shoving it in their mouth. They're not even using utensils. What's that? It's butter. You dip your lobster in there, he starts dipping it in the butter and eating it. So I turn around, it's good, right? It's good. I'm like a caveman. I go, hey, man, come here, man. See the shirt? It's a $250 shirt. It's a Robert Graham shirt. If you get any of that butter on this shirt, man, we're going to have a problem. He goes, did I get any on you? I said, no, I'm just saying. But again, I ingratiated myself with the most violent guy in the room, but that dude did not like what he was seeing. And the op ended really quick, and the case ended fairly quickly. But I think that dude at the end, he didn't like me so much so, I would not have come out of that case.
How did you know that he didn't like you?
I could tell by the way he's looking at me. Yeah. And I could see later in the pictures that we took and the videos that we took, he was on me. He was locked on me with this look of disgust that if he could beat me to death right there, he would have done it.
Well, back to the body language and knowing your tradecraft, knowing your art, and knowing, your room, basically, right? Like 9 people in a room, everybody loves you except the one guy. There's no sense even trying to convince him. Some people aren't convincible, But I learned from him and he learned from me, and we kind of grew our careers together. And I thought it was so interesting that, he treated this Nazi skinhead guy complete opposite of what
he probably used to being treated.
No one messes with that dude.
Yeah.
He looks terrifying,
Is that just prison shit? Is that where people get all the face stuff? Or
I never been in prison. I got tattoos all over.
No,
it's just
as far as like
cultural
racist and the swastikas in their ear. Like I can't imagine where you would function in society outside of prison with that type of advertising on your face.
Yeah, but if you see where these folks live and stuff, I mean, it's.
Maybe that's why I don't understand.
Yeah,
I had to walk among them quite a few times. And I'm telling you what, I was like, man, I don't want to live like this. You know what I mean? Like it's not a normal part of society.
What did you notice about those types of people? Is it a lot of nepotism? Is it felons that can't get other work?
No, it's radicalism.
Radicalism.
It's radicalism. It's extremism. Some of these true leaders of these groups and stuff were very clean cut. They wore suit and ties. They called themselves ministers. And it's like you were overseas, right? Mm-hmm. It's like Islam, It's not every single one of them is an extremist.
Sure. But
you take a Christian identist, and they basically believe at the level of jihad the same as they do over there. I mean, it's an empowerment for them, But also, I found, no disrespect to anybody, but a lot of these folks had low self-esteem, low income. This guy couldn't read, and birds of a feather flock together,
right?
And that's where they find safety in numbers. And to tell you the truth, they're not that tough. They're not these big bad dudes. So put tattoos all over ourselves and make ourselves look intimidating and scary, and walk around, and people don't mess with them. I think that was my perception of it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And again, it goes to that mirroring, right? Mm-hmm. Like what you mentioned before. And I think you got to be real careful because some of these undercovers, they'll try to mirror that. Yeah, the undercover in that case was trying to mirror that, and he couldn't handle it. Like he couldn't handle the 8 hours in a car driving from the Midwest to Jersey.
Yeah,
and he was so just emotionally deregulated and just like burnt out by the time he got there, just from the music. So you can't mirror some of that stuff.
What are some of the red flags that you've seen in younger officers or other undercovers when you're like, that dude's burning out? Or like that guy's going to get himself hurt or blow a case or blow his
Same
cup.
thing in the military, right? Like if you're not supposed to go outside your zone and now you're pushing the envelope, it's the same thing, right? You look for those little characteristics. Dude, what are you doing?
You start doing cowboy stuff.
You start doing some wacky shit.
They're meeting with bad guys with no briefing, no on their own time. They're meeting with sources and setting up deals without not having.
They're starting to do too much.
They're not doing the paperwork. They're not following the protocol. You know what I mean? They're like, I need money. I got to buy a bunch of dope. What are you talking about? Oh, I set up last night. Where were you? What do you mean? Where were you? I was down at the Tiernanog hanging out with the guys. Like,
yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's an operation. It has to be written up, approved, authorized, and budgeted. You can't just go out and wing it. So that's an indicator.
Yeah, some guys bite off more than they can chew. Like they went in to buy dope. Or they went in to do a political corruption case. And they're bribing politicians. They're bribing local government. They're bribing whoever, right? And that's a great case. But then all of a sudden, when the politicians introduce them to the gangbangers, now all of a sudden you become a drug dealer, and then you're buying drugs, and all of a sudden you become a drug dealer and a gun runner. Like, what are you doing, man? Well, I'm building a case. I'm going to build the best case that the Bureau's ever had, or the DEA, or whatever agency you're representing. And then they just go crazy, right? And they get out of control. And they're like, dude, you're doing way too much. You're making yourself look like a rat, which is the worst, right? Because I'd rather be looked at as a cop than a rat. Maybe they won't kill you as quick as they would kill you for your rat. If they think you're law enforcement, you got a chance of talking your way out, or you got a chance of talking some of these extreme groups into not killing you. Today, I think they just as quick kill you because you are a cop, Really? But you got to be real careful, because if you're doing too much and you're outside your comfort zone, man, they're going to sniff you out.
Yeah, and I think I'd see them start to like disconnect. We got mandatory training regiments that have to happen. They're required and they're important. Your range time and your EVOC, your emergency vehicle operations time and all that. I don't got to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm not going. I got a deal. I can't be seen with these guys. I'm not going to do that.
I got an op.
You start seeing them lose perspective of what it's like to be professional. Yeah.
Or they start believing who they are, right? You start believing,
they start taking it too far.
That guy, you start believing you're Giovanni Gatto and not Giovanni Rocco, and then all of a sudden you think you're showing up to the field office, the field division, dressed in a silk suit. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? I've even caught myself. Like I caught myself. I had a picture taken with Director Comey at the time, and I'm wearing my Undercover Rolex, and I'm in a pinstripe suit. Like, what am I doing? Like, that's not how an agent dresses. This is not our protocol. You dress in a suit when you get your picture taken, and, here I am. I got to push the envelope. But sometimes you don't realize it, and you got to reel yourself back in. But other times, like, the guys have done some crazy shit.
What are some of the lessons learned that you'd take in that category?
About staying healthy?
Yeah, keeping it tight, about not getting complacent, not like, oh, I forgot to take my pinky ring off for that photo op, or little things. Are there lessons learned or mistakes that you made, like, oh, fuck, that was way too close, not doing that again, or something you passed down? I assume you guys provide some training or do some speaking events and things like that for...
Yeah, I do a lot of speaking. And again, I guess the one thing I passed down is not what the government ever taught me. And I named my book Giovanni's Ring for that reason. My trigger was, and again, I say when I used to pull in my driveway, I wore... Most of the jewelry I wore was my own because I had better jewelry than the government did. And, and that was cultural. But sometimes I wear a government watch or I wear a ring. I made it specific to wear a government ring that I had, this big, gaudy, like old-fashioned ring that looked like my uncle would have handed down to me. And it had this huge diamond in the middle of it. That was my pinky ring. But I knew when I pulled up in my driveway at my home with my family, I would take that ring off as a switch to always remind me, and I would drop it in the cup holder. And I just leave it there. If somebody wants to break into my car, my G-Ride, or my personal car and steal that ring, that's on them, man. I don't care. That ring is not coming in the house because it's just a switch to remind me I got to go back to being Giovanni Rocco and being a father. And then I realized looking back, I write about it in the book. I thought I had this all nailed down, like this great undercover and this veteran undercover. But if you ask my wife, and I write about it, that it was a shit show at the end of the case. Like when I got unplugged and all the emotions and all the anger I had about like my actions and my good work caused me to end my career. And I had all this anger. That ring didn't do the job that it did sometimes, but a guy like Giovanni Gatto, I would never let him be around my family. My wife would never be around a guy like that. My kids certainly would not be. I wouldn't let a guy like that in my house. And then come to find there were moments when he was living in my house, amongst my kids. And I in my presentation, I use it on my little guy. Like he was small at the time and we relocated and I wasn't even operational anymore. And he was in these reading classes, like a book club. And I think he was in first or second grade. And you were able to read to the teacher. And then if you read well, you went over to the prize box and you took a, fidget spinner or a squishy ball or something. And then the girls had little jewelry boxes they could pick from. My guy, he's picking all the girls' rings. And I'm sitting there and now I'm in a house relocated. And my wife is like, look at this. Ask him how his day was today. Ask him and he sits there and he's like, how's school today? It's all right. He's got sunglasses on. 7, 8 o'clock at night. It's dark out. He's got sunglasses on. He's got all these rings on his fingers. And every time I ask him a question, I'm like, so how was school today? It was all right. And he's like talking with his hands. I'm like, well, so what'd you do? I did that reading thing, and I got these things. And I'm like, what's with the rings? And I snapped a picture of it. And I use it in my presentations now to say, like, your kids are always watching it.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful. So yeah, I'm a little more mindful now. I'm a little more open about it. And you have to be careful. You have to stay on your game. You have to listen. If somebody tells you, hey, G, hey, Zach, you're slipping. I don't know, man. You're getting a little crazy out there. You're going outside the green zone or whatever it is, and you're stepping outside. What are you doing, man? It's all right. I got to reel it back in. It's a fine line.
I can see how it would be very difficult. And there was something I was watching a Jordan Peterson clip this last week, and he's talking about lying. He's like, do not lie. Like if people understood the consequence of lying, they wouldn't do it because, we use it to temporarily manipulate our environment, right? But you don't get away with shit.
No.
Even lying to yourself, like things in your life are going to happen where you're going to need to be able to rely on yourself. And if you've been lying to everyone and yourself, you can't trust yourself.
You don't even exist.
Right. Like you've detached yourself from reality because you've surrounded yourself with lies. And so that's like his advice for getting through life. But you guys have embraced a lifestyle or a career path that required it. And so how do you make that dance? Did you lose track of your lies? Did you ever get to a point where you're like, I'm out of control and I'm lying every time somebody asks me a question?
No.
Okay.
You know why? And then, man, we talk about this in depth. Every time this comes up a lot, kind of like the perception of,
I thought I was being original.
No, it's okay. It's really, we never think about talking about it, but it's so important because we only know our perspective from inside the life, you know what I mean? Where we were at and what we're doing. And now that we've stepped out, we're like, well, they thought we were doing blow and banging hookers.
Yeah.
And they thought we were lying all the time. He and I both, I know I can speak for myself, learned quickly that you can't keep up with a lie. And, everybody's been around a person where you're like, that's a lie.
Yeah.
You don't call them out on it, but you're like,
Sure.
that's bullshit.
Sure.
And then you hear it again, and you hear it again, and pretty soon you don't want to be around that person anymore.
Yep.
If we were lying on the job while we're working undercover, they would have that same feeling. They're like, that's bullshit. That don't make any sense. I don't like this guy. He's not going to come around no more. So my story was as close to truthful as could be. The only thing that was a lie was like my name and maybe where I lived, but the rest of my life experiences and things I talked about, my personality, the way I look, dress, and walk and talk, it's really me. Because you can't lie about you. It'll come through.
So be authentic as you can be.
100%.
One of the best trainings I ever had, it was literally a 2-second class. And it was from that guy Pino, and taught me, you can't F up you. That's it. And the minute he said that to me, I was like, oh shit. Because again, early in my career, I was my name was Mike, right? My name was something else. And I was like, oh, who do I want to be today? I think I want to be a Pete today, Well, if you walk in a room and somebody yells, Pete, 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 and you're not turning around looking, that'll get you killed. Yeah. So it was like, then I understood you can't F up you. And then when I met him, I realized like he operated the same way I did. I don't make up shit. All the stuff I experienced as a young kid, all the stuff I experienced as a young cop and autopsies and everything, I use it for the job. And I turn it on and off and I apply it to that. Empathy. The empathy that he and I have, and again, we mirror each other with that because we both come from similar backgrounds. I grew up in a violent environment, him not so much, but we were exposed to it on the job. So I leaned on that and you use that. And I'm always true to myself. So the guy you met when dressed up as Giovanni Gatto was always the guy Giovanni Rocco, You might have met him as a biker, or you might have met him as a
What would be the differentiation or difference, I guess? Because you said a minute ago you wouldn't let Giovanni be around your family. Mm-hmm. Your wife wouldn't, but you're saying also that it's the same person. So what is the difference then? Because there's got to be one, right? You're not fully in character, or the character is somewhat outside of who you are, at least morally, right? So I guess I'm asking, what was the discernible difference for you?
Well, I would try to make it a point. My moral compass is everything, right?
Okay.
Like, and again, I never stole a dime when it came to the job. I never lied in a report. I my moral compass was always there. But when you have this repeated exposure to being in these environments, there's little snippets that would come out. Like the Giovanni Gatto would come out, and still does to this day. Like, it depends. If we're in a restaurant and he and I go in somewhere, they're trying to understand the dynamics between the two of us because these two things do not look like each other. Yeah. And there's something weird about those guys. We don't get the vibe that, oh, those guys are cops, or those guys are operatives. People usually think. So, but I guess like for an example, I was completely turned off, shut down from operations, and I was home. And then some dude was in a movie theater, and I took my kid to a Disney movie, and, she's trying to watch it, and she's kicking the back of some dude's chair. And, he's there, some creepy dude with his girlfriend. He's, 30-something years old, and you're at a Disney movie. So it kind of aggravated me and set me off. And the dude turned around and said something to my daughter. Well, I practically gave him a Mike Tyson to his ear. I pretty much almost bit his ear off like Holyfield. I went to drag him outside by his hair in the middle of the theater. Wow. And my wife's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, man, it just overcame me. I'll rip your fucking head off. And I'm whispering in this dude's ear, threatening, I'll rip your head off, bro. Move to another seat now. Like a gangster would do. You need to move. You need to take your girl. You need to move, or I'll move you. And it's going to be out of the building.
I think you take it a bit further than that because no, what I'm saying is
I take it a bit further?
No, I'm saying no. There's more to it.
Yeah.
because I actually know what he's saying.
You swallowed.
Yeah. You chewed his ear up. No, but even when you're a uniform guy, you'd bring this home to your family.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, you heard that theory. You are what the 5 people you're surrounded by are.
Yeah.
When you put on a uniform, you go to work. You're at domestic abuse, child abuse, fights, assaults. You're stressed out of your mind. Your radio's been going off all night. You're sweating, you're hot, you're tired, you got to wake up in 2 hours and go to court, and then your kids won't shut up. And what have you been listening to all day and all night?
Yep.
Shut the fuck up, whack, smack, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So even when you were in uniform, that guy that you said you didn't want in your house was coming to your house then too. It was more not about being undercover, I don't think, as much as it was just the stressors, When we were on the job in uniform, it was the stress of the street. When you're undercover, it's the stress of living in the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely as a young cop, it would always be, don't ask me about my job. Like, I would come home and it would be, I would completely just disassociate myself. And like, I need time. Like, shh, daddy needs time. Don't wake up, daddy, he's sleeping, And I realized much later in my career, again, that open communication is just a phone call. If my wife is in the house and she's got the kids and she has me on speakerphone, hey, you got me on speakerphone? Yeah. All right, well, I'm on my way. And I don't care what it is. Like, you got to communicate to her. You have to come up with, you have to come up with a plan, whether that's an evac plan or a plan to mitigate something, just to say to her, listen, I'm coming home, but I'm not right. Yeah. And my thing used to be, if I say to her, hey, listen, I'm on my way home. You got me on speaker? The kids hear me? Yeah. All right, listen, the bridge is up. I got stuck in traffic. There's no drawbridges on the way to my house, but it's my way of telling her, listen, I had a shitty day and I'm going to come in hot.
Yeah.
And I promise you, like, if I come in hot, I'm letting you know right now is not, don't ask me about what's going on in the news. Don't ask me what the neighbors are calling to find out what I know about this special case or whatever's going on. Just, I need my time.
Yeah. So
let me take a shower. When the time is right, I'll sit down, have a glass of wine, have a cup of coffee with you, and I'll talk about it when I'm ready.
Yeah.
That shit didn't fly at my house.
I said that was much
like,
later.
Get your ass home, get your clothes changed, and get the kid to swimming lessons because I got to go fucking work.
Yeah.
I don't care what you've been through.
Yeah. Life doesn't stop.
It doesn't. And I'm saying that, but you have to be aware of it. The mafia case that he and I did together, that's how the case started. I literally on a Saturday got a phone call saying, hey, G, I got these guys low-hanging fruit. Can you come down to Atlantic City and do a dope deal with me? Yeah, where is it? Oh, it's at this restaurant. Yeah, my Uncle Sam's paying a meal. I know I'm going to eat good. So I hang up and I was like, yeah, man, give me a couple hours. I'll be down there. I go in, I tell my wife, hey, listen, I got to run down. So-and-so needs me down Atlantic City. She's like, listen, I'm on call at midnight. She was working sex crimes. And she's like, you have these kids in the morning. It's your morning tomorrow morning. You better be home by midnight. And, I'll be home. This is quick. It's a dope deal. Boom, boom, done. I'll be back in a couple hours. I'll be home by the time, by 2:00, the latest, I'll be back. Man, I was sitting all over. The restaurant closes. These guys show up. And I was watching the Yankee game. And the Yankees are losing. I'm a Yankee fan. So I was mentally just shut down. And I could hear my wife, like, in the morning just bitching at me and complaining and telling me I fucked up again and I fucking didn't keep to my word. And these dudes showed up and just the douchebag that I was when they showed up. And I'm like, so this is Giovanni. Yeah, nice to meet you. You got me sitting here like a jerk off for how many hours? Go ahead, do your thing. And it was like such a dick about it, And he's like, yeah, so where are we going to do this? And I could hear the conversation going on. But I'm in roll. But I know, I'm going to listen to it in the morning. I'm going to hear this shit tomorrow. I'm watching the Yankees lose. And he's like, so what do you think, G? What do I think about what? Well, where do you want to do this? I don't know. What are you doing? Well, the guy's got the stuff on him. And I just went into roll and I was like, you got one on you. He goes, well, I got the shit that he wanted. What shit? I got the coke. I got the coke on me. He had a half a key or more of coke on him. He goes, I said, you have it on you here? And he said, yeah. And now I took my personal life and dumped it on this guy. And I said, you have it on you right now? He says, yeah. I said, do me a favor. Get the fuck out of here. I don't know you. I don't want to know you. I never met you before. I don't know who you are. I want you to leave my table. I never met you. And my buddy who's with me, he obviously knows it's an act. He says, gee, relax. Hey, don't tell me relax, man. You put me in this position. If I, this is stupid, bro. I didn't come down for this. If he's wearing a wire or he's recording us, he's like, bro, I know this guy. He's good. Playing along. But again, my personal life spilled over. And this guy went back with a story. So he's like, well, where do you want to do it? He said, looks at my partner. He's like, you want to do it in the bathroom? Bathroom? What are you, fucking 16-year-old girl doing dope deals, fucking marijuana deals in the bathroom in high school? No, I don't want to do it. What are you, fucking stupid? So again, it was my whole attitude. So a little Italian girl was the waitress. And I would never speak this way to a girl. And I'm like, hey, sweetheart, snap my finger at her. And again, I go completely Giovanni to 10.0, and I'm like, hey, come here. You got one of them things, them bags, like to put the food in to go? A to-go bag? Yeah, go get me one of them. Now, this guy's watching this whole thing. And I go, fucking, if I go back to the can, listen to what I'm saying. If I go back to the can, and it's going to be because of what I did, not what you did, you jackass, put me in this position. Here, put it under the table and give it to me. He does it. Well, after the deal's done, he went back to North Jersey and tell these guys in the neighborhood, hey, man, I just met these Bruno Scarfo guys, Philly guys from down Atlantic City. They're the real deal. And he painted this picture, and that's how that case started. Yeah. All because my wife told me, get your ass home on a Saturday night, and you better be home by the morning. And that's how the case started.
Just act agitated.
Just,
like, get this shit over with.
He is
rookies.
agitated.
Yeah, you are. And it is. It's this juggle.
Yeah.
You know? But then later on in the case, I'm at a soccer game, and, you know, dude come walking up on me from another crime family. And I was at my kid's soccer game. And thank God my wife and I had an escape plan. But you never know when the job is going to spill over into real life. So you have to... I guess you have to make an attempt, right? Is what I'm saying. You have to try to be aware.
Normalize it, you mean?
To mitigate it. You have to make some kind. You're not always gonna, but if you can reel it in, you realize, okay, if somebody says to you, you got to listen to your spouse. Whether you're military or first responder, you have to listen. These are the people that married you, and they're in this ride or die forever. I know, bro, but I'm.
So you don't recommend the no information, cut her off. She can't know anything. Like, she needs to be on the team.
Yeah, you don't have to tell her every detail, but she's got to know what you go through. She has to know that there's this emotional.
She'll never understand if she's not included.
He's been married for a long time, and that's how they've been treating it. And I can tell you, I'm divorced twice, and I was living my life and my own life. Like,
do you think
I didn't do that
because of the job?
No, I think I'm just a wild crazy. Yeah, I mean, I just
both.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that, but I mean, definitely
didn't help.
You can't just be like, you wouldn't understand. You know, I think you did the right thing by, you know, hey, the bridge is up. I'm coming home. I'm not right. You know, I can't say that I had that fairness with my family. You know what I mean? I just expected them to deal with it, and I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, because it definitely isn't. It didn't end well, you know. But but it is what it is.
And you have to find what works for you. I think not all of us are the same, right? Whatever I apply might not work for him, and vice versa.
Not all wives can handle
Not all wives can handle it.
Yeah. I had that conversation with my wife when I went back over it. I was like, do you want to know or do you want to not know?
That's fair.
Because there's concern in both. Like, your imagination can make you crazy.
Yeah.
Or knowing what I'm actually doing can really scare you. And so you tell me. And she wanted to know. And so I was as honest as I could be without. And sometimes they just don't need to know shit.
Well, me and him are running around with 6 cell phones, hanging out in strip clubs, you know, driving around Range Rovers.
Wife's gonna have some questions.
She's like, when did you start smoking cigarettes?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
What's on your clothes?
Yeah.
What is that? What's up? Why do you have red wine on your shirt, and why is there glitter on your collar and lipstick on your neck? And yeah, some of the stuff I don't know what the answer is, you know?
Yeah.
Be open and honest about the emotional stuff you're going through. Yeah, but I think maybe the way you handle it, like, do you want to know? Do you want to know, or do you want to kind of know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to take, I guess you have to take the time to let them know that they're important, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? Looking back, I think if I would have taken the time to acknowledge them a little better, you know, whether it's my first wife, my current wife now, and just taking the time and having that communication. Like, again, my wife, she was an undercover. She worked undercover. And she's like, let's take it or leave it. Like, I'm not being used. You're letting the government use you. She would tell me all the time, this is not going to end well for us. I'm telling you right now, we're going to get screwed over. This is not going to end well for us. No way. I got this, man. I got this. And even then, all the training I had, it was, I'm trying to lie. I'm lying to myself because I want what I want. I'm selfish.
Yeah. Trying to justify it.
Sure.
Whatever I got to say, whatever I got to tell my supervisors, and whatever I got to do to mitigate this, to continue in this case and keep myself involved or stay plugged in, I'm going to lie. I'm going to manipulate. I'm good, man. I'm good. Meanwhile, I'm not good. I'm not sleeping for days. You know, I'm paranoid as fuck, and I'm running around. Or he and I are out in Vegas, and, you know, we can't break roll. It's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. We're walking down the Las Vegas, right, we're on the strip, and some dude got shot in the head. You know, and we watched it. It was the night the guy got shot coming out of the Planet Hollywood or whatever it was. And listen, we're with my supervisor was with us, and he's like, "We got to go do something, dude. We can't, dude. We're not cops. Like, there's cops already there. Let them handle it. You know."
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're like, "Oh man, I want to jump in. I want to help, but you know, if the cops are on it already."
Was the action your payment? Was that what you were doing it for?
We didn't do it for extra money.
Yeah.
We didn't do it for medals.
Ain't doing it for riches.
No.
Yeah.
No way. There was only a small group of us. And at the end of the day, you probably hear it from everybody, military and first responders. At the end of the day, my old man warned me. He gave me a warning when I was younger, and he's like, you better be careful, man, because at the end of the day, the minute you're gone, they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And he used to say to me, man,
that?
I could get a chimp to do your work.
Yeah.
I can get a chimpanzee to do what you do. I was like, man, that's so offensive. And I never understood what he was trying to say to me, but in his own way, he was trying to tell me, like, dude, you will be replaceable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think you're the most elite guy, and you think you and your buddies are the guys that are doing it. There's somebody going to be right behind you. And I guess it's cathartic to realize he was right. And now, and you know, again, the mature guy, I was supposed to be a made guy in a family, but it never came to that because of the murders that we were supposed to commit. So at the end of the day, it's like, the young me would have never looked at it. When I got relocated and the cases came down, it's the prosecutor's job. I don't decide how many people get charged in my case. That's your job. I did my job. I gave you the evidence. Here's the evidence. Now you do the prosecution side of it. It took me many years to figure that out.
What is the made man process?
To be a made guy?
Mm-hmm.
So typically, back in the day, it was you had to commit the ultimate deed of murder. Cosa Nostra, you know, the life of the mafia. You would have to commit a murder. But it's changed over the decades and generations where it's, if you're a good earner now, you know, and you're a capable guy and you could earn good money, you can pretty much buy your button nowadays.
How did it work? So you were tasked with killing someone, and how did that work? Because I heard you say in the interview, like, y'all didn't do that, right? Because I could see it being like, well, we don't need that guy. He's kind of a pain in the ass. We'll let you kill him, and then we'll just charge the guy that told you to kill him with it, right? 2 birds, 1 stone.
It was an emotional roller coaster. So I was in a case early on. And again, using from some guys from Botafides, he was off doing his thing. It was just how things happened. And I didn't turn around one day and go, I'm going to infiltrate the mafia. I showed up for that drug deal down in Atlantic City, and it kind of took a life of its own. And then things happened along the way and different things. And then what happened was, as the case progressed, I was introduced to made guys. Like serious guys, like that are made mafia guys.
How
capos.
many made guys make up?
So you have low-level associates. Let's say it's a guy like me. I'm in the street. I'm hustling. I'm making money. Whether I have a pizzeria, I'm a bookmaker, or I'm doing some gambling things. And just through a guy who's an associate, a made guy. To be a made guy, you become a soldier. So it's very much like you said earlier. It's very much like our structure: sergeants, lieutenants, captains, right?
Any of the gangs, really, you know,
they're all like that, right?
Structure that.
So in the mafia, it was soldiers and a made guys. That's a made guy, and he can't be touched, right? You know, when you have that status as a made guy, it's like, I have status. You can't, you could still be whacked out. They could approve you to be whacked out. But then you got on top of them, you have capo regimes. They have like maybe 5 or 6 guys that could be soldiers under them. And then you have the administration. The administration is the underboss, which is like the street boss. Then you have the legal consigliere. The consigliere is a capo who's doing he's the sit down guy. So if we have a beef, the consigliere is kind of like have you ever watched The Sopranos? It's like, I can't remember his name, Stevie Van Zandt played. Like, he would be the consigliere, the voice of reason to come in and say, hey, Skip, hey, boss, yeah, we should kill this guy, but let's think about this, Yeah. And so you have structure. But when I came in, I was just an associate. I was low-hanging fruit. But then what happened was I met the guy, Luigi. Luigi was slated to be a made guy, unbeknownst to me as the case progressed. He wanted me in his crew. And then he and I were doing business together, and it was going well. But then the guy I met down in Atlantic City who went around bragging about me, his name was Jimmy. He wanted me to be with him because he was earning good money with me. So he went to his uncle, who was recently released for murder, and that's Charlie. And then Charlie was a soldier, but when he got out of prison, he served his 14 to 20 year sentence, and then he got made to be a captain. And then
did he serve that sentence for killing someone, becoming a made man?
No, he was already a made guy. He was already a soldier, and then he committed the murder. It was a guy within their family. And then he committed a few murders. He was being looked at for other murders, or they suspected him to be for other murders. But yeah, the one he was convicted of was somebody inside the family. Gunned him down in the back of a hotel, And actually what happened was he shot one of his drivers and another made guy and hit him in the shoulder or something. And that dude went to the hospital and got treated and then found out, he gave it all up. So even though he went on the lam for the murder, but then he found out he gave him up, so he tried killing him. He tried planning his murder too while he's, while they were trying to capture him. So he was a loose cannon. The guy was a murder and mayhem type of guy. So yeah, so when they tried to introduce me to him, then it was on. And then I got so far in over the next year and a half or so of doing the case that once I was with the capo, I realized it was really out of hand. And then I introduced Dutch to the case for bona fides. And then my capo met him. And then when it came time, he kind of told me, I started running my own crew for him. And then I became like an acting soldier for him because he was putting the crew together and I was leading it. He actually put his son under me. And then as things went on, he kind of shared with me, yeah, that guy Luigi, things aren't going well for him. I think we're going to clip him. I was like, oh, shit, that's too bad. He says, yeah. So, and I told the administration, I told the bosses, you'll do it. Oh, okay. I was like, all right. He says, yeah. So, I said, all right, well, who do you want me to use?
Voluntold.
Yeah, voluntold.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, do you want me to use my guys? Like the crew that you're putting together, you want me to use your son and those guys? No. You got to use somebody else. And I kind of like introduced the idea and he bit. He was like, oh, yeah. What about that guy Dutch? Yeah, you met him. You know what he's like, Chaw. He said, would he do it? Yeah, he'll help me with it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's a capable guy, right? Which means he'll do murder. Yeah. So you kidding me? I know him my whole life. And again, he saw the dynamic between us already out in Vegas. And so he bought what we painted the picture. And he was like, yeah, use those guys. And it was so funny.
Did you feel safer having another undercover working with you on a case, or was it another variable that you might not be able to? Okay. So not always?
Not always,
Okay.
definitely not.
Very few.
Really?
Yeah.
Very few.
It's just too much to keep up with.
Right,
right. And if somebody messes up, you're both discredited, And so I'd say Giovanni and I, we did almost all of our cases, not without a team. It's not fair to say I, or he, and all that. We had lots of people doing really awesome jobs, different things, but actually main role undercovers, we might bring in a support undercover here and there that might maybe just pick up money and drop it off, but not have a lot of engagement, because the more engagement too many people have, it starts to become kind of diluted. Yeah, real hard to keep up with.
Yeah, I brought a guy to a meeting in the Mafia case one time, and he was just dropping stuff off, and he happened to be a driver with me. And he was just a buffer, and he was an associate, and he showed up with his phone, and he had his phone in his pocket, and the camera was facing out. And no big deal. We did our thing. I counted money and I was on my way. And then the next time I showed up at the guy's shop, he was like, hey, man, that guy you brought around here, I didn't like it. He was wearing that fucking thing in his pocket and pointing at a camera at me. What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, his camera's pointing right at me, G. What's that about? I said, I don't know. He's not like us. He's just a money guy. I had to make an excuse for him. And then fast forward, he really stuck it.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate that it was a series of events that unfolded. I showed up for a meet with the guy Luigi, and he had been reaching out to me he was trying to win me back over to get him to be in his crew because I was earning good money. And then I had a great conversation with him. So what happened was he was trying to get in touch with me, but I'm already running around with the capo, the captain, a higher ranking guy, Charlie. And that's the way that the government decided. And it was real weird and it was irresponsible of all of us to say, oh, I met Zach. Start doing work with Zach. Wait a minute. Zach knows Dutch. So put Zach on a back burner. Go do business with Dutch. Now I'm doing business with Dutch, and then all of a sudden everything's going well. You're not getting anything out of it. Now you're mad at me. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. He's got a boss. Yeah. Dutch introduced you to him. Forget Dutch. Put him on the other back burner. And it's like, it looked really bad. So Louis kept reaching out to me. And then I was like, I'm not answering him, So he called an associate of mine to try to get me to answer the phone. He said, hey, have you seen G? He's like, yeah, what's up? Well, I got to see him. Tell him I want to see him. All right, I'll set a meeting up with him. He's texting him. I'll set a meeting tomorrow. G said he can meet you tomorrow. We'll be there tomorrow at this time. And we showed up for the meeting, and Louis wanted to win me back. So he was like, hey, listen, all that shit that you're buying, I was buying a lot of cocaine. He says, all that stuff you're buying, that's my guys. You're buying it from my crew. Oh, good. I said, because now I'm looking at it as a criminal. I go, so we could renegotiate per gram? I'm going to get it cheaper because now you're saying it's yours. I want cheaper product. So he's like, no, I just want you to know that it's coming from me. And I knocked off an Athleta truck. I had a hijacked truckload of Athleta, like shirts or shorts and shit. And I brought samples to him to try to get rid of it. And great conversation. So my associate that set up the meeting, that did the text, he realized we were making a good tape. and it was good evidence. So he excused himself like he really should have, and he's smart about it. And I tell the story not to embarrass him. So he went in the car, and I guess 30 seconds is too long to keep your attention. So he got bored and got on his burner phone and started texting the case agent. And he's like, hey, man, Gio's with the target now. Should be done in 10 minutes. We'll meet you back at the... And he hit it, and he sent it to Louis, the guy that I was talking to. So he was quick about it and realized, oh, my God. So he jumped out of the car, and he said, give me your phone, right up to Louis' waist. Give me your phone, right up to his hip. Give me your phone, give me your phone, give me your phone. And we're like looking at him like, what the fuck? What are you doing? He's like, just give me your phone. I need a phone. I need a phone. I had an emergency at home. I had something happen. I need a phone. And Louis didn't know what was going on. And I'm like, he gave him the phone. It was so fast that when he handed him the phone, you heard the ding and the text came over. And he took the phone, ran away. He was pretty smart about it, but he ran away and went to a Verizon store in a little strip mall. And Louis legit standing there looking at him. He's going, where's he going with my phone, G? And he's pacing back and forth outside the store. I said, I don't know. He goes, what is this all about? This guy's with you, right? You vouch for this guy? I said, yeah, it's my guy. It's Tommy. It's my guy. He goes, where's he going? I don't know. Let's go find out. So as we start walking towards the store, about 100 yards away, he dipped into the Verizon store. And the kid was smart. The guy, I ain't calling kid. He was smart enough because he went in the Verizon store. He wasn't familiar with iPhones. So he went in there and told the girl, erase this message right now. And she did, thank God. And he came out of the store and boom, boom. And that was that. So that's when I realized I needed him in the case after
That's
that.
the worst feeling ever. Like you send the wrong text to someone and then you're like, oh God, I'm going to throw up. Like
I sent the wrong text to my mom one time and I'm like, oh, how do you get that out of there? It's not good.
Don't send dick pics to your mom.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Oh, shit.
But like the question was, do you work with other undercovers? And we did, but I had similar experiences. I think sometimes what would happen is we're all so eager to help. We all want to be part of this deal. It's so cool. I want to try it. And they accidentally overstep their bound and get out of lane, I had a guy that wanted to get into one of the skinhead cases with me. That's a tough environment, but he grew up in Tennessee and he said he was comfortable and he could speak to it and everything. And I took him to this place out in a swamp in the middle of nowhere where they're having a big, like, what they call it, a conference or whatever. People from all over the world, these Aryan people wearing uniforms, hardcore dudes. I mean, hard to be around people, really hard. It's intimidating. And he shut down. Not his fault, nothing wrong with that. It got really intense. Once everybody started drinking, it got later at night and he shut down. And that shutdown, just doing nothing, just literally sitting cross-legged Indian style on the ground, like that was it. Like he shut down, and that's, after that, I was like, we got to be responsible to make sure we don't take on things that we don't understand or aren't comfortable with. We also have to be responsible and make sure we don't bring people in to things that women want to be involved in undercover in some of the cases I was working in. Women can do everything men can do. I'm not disrespecting that, but in the criminal world, political correctness doesn't exist.
No.
It doesn't exist. They don't care who's what, who. And, I might be like, you can come in on a case, but the only thing you're going to get to do is pick up the bag of money and take it over there and leave it. Don't engage with them. Don't talk to them. But you know what you can do? Talk to the girls. Because guess what? The girls know everything going on. And if you can stay out of this part and let us do this part, even though that's the sexy, fun part, but if you can go over there and listen and talk to them, you might find out more than I'm ever going to know.
Yeah.
But the hard part was getting people to want to stay in their lane. Everybody wants to come in and be above you, He wanted to be the first guy to send a text out to the team at how good they were doing.
Yeah.
And he sent it to the bad guy.
Yeah. Or yucking it up too much, making fun of guys, breaking their balls or saying something that they shouldn't be saying. And this
Take it too far.
This is what you bring around, have a couple too many drinks and then can't handle it. And you're like, this is what you're bringing around me, Giovanni? These people? The minute that Charlie met him, he was, the dynamic was perfect. You couldn't have made it up. You couldn't have directed. Martin Scorsese couldn't have directed a better thing than what we had. I had breakfast. I brought these guys out there, not with the intention of, he was asking me what I was doing. And I was out there, I came out to Vegas and he was like, what are you doing out here? Well, nothing. I'm not going to tell you. And I made him work for it. He's like, well, I want to know, what are you doing out here? Because I didn't tell you to come out here and see me. Are you doing something out here? I'm not talking to you about this. And I made him work for it, right? I threw that line out in the water. And he's like, well, I want to know what you're doing. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing. It's none of your business, because he's on parole. And I said, look, Skip, you're on paper. meaning parole. I said, I'm not going to talk to you about this. I'm doing some things with some biker guys. That guy Dutch that I talked to, he's out here. You know, I'm doing some things with him. He's got some things going on out in Hawaii. I'm moving some stuff, and I'm not going to talk to you about it. It's all right. Tell me what you're doing. I want to know. Is it papaya? Meaning drugs. He says, tell me. I want to know. All right, fine, it is. But listen to me. Can you hear me out, please? I'm not touching it. I'm just brokering it. He goes, I know what you're doing. I see. Yeah. So as I'm having this conversation with him, the waitress comes over. Now, I had no intention on inviting these guys to meet him or, you know, it was to sprinkle and say they're out here. So with that, the girl comes over and she's got a Bloody Mary, a Caesar's Bloody Mary, which is like a spicy Bloody Mary. So out in Vegas, you know, when we're not, where I'm decompressing, I might have a couple of drinks, and that's my recovery drink in the morning. He knows that. So the waitress comes over and she says, are you Giovanni? I says, yeah, what's up? She goes, this is from Dutch. I go, oh, is it? And now my capo's looking at me like, what the fuck is that? Like, you know, I said, oh, where is he? Is he here? She says, yeah, he's around the other side of this place called Raffles.
That was impromptu. I wasn't supposed to be there.
Yep.
I just walked in and saw them having breakfast. Just normal shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'd send him a Bloody Mary.
And that's how I wound up meeting him, because I was like, oh, is he here? She's like, yeah. He said, when you're finished, you know, come over and say hi and say good morning. Tell him I'll be over later. I appreciate it. Thank you. I can't believe he did this. Charlie's like, what's that? It's breaking my horns. I drink these things to recover. Good. Hair of the dog, right? Hair of the dog. I said, yeah. Let me finish up. I said, let me go say hi. You want to say hi to him? Is he here? Yeah, they're here. The two of them are here. And it's him. And at the time, you had big, long hair.
Long dreadlock hair. And
pulled and shit. Yeah. So when you look at these guys, you go, yeah, they're no good. And the other guy that's with them had the big, long braid down here and, you know, big beard. And so I said, yeah, come say hello. And he goes, yeah, I'd love to meet him. You talk about him enough. I say, come on. So we come around the corner, and he's wearing his little, you know, Adidas sweatsuit. He's got his little sneakers on, and it's a carpeted floor. And,
not me, his cat.
No, not him. So the two of them are sitting there, and as he comes around the corner, you can literally hear the screech on the floor and like rubber, like, you know, burning off his heels. And he's, whoa, yeah, look like nice guys. What? Come say hello. It's just, you know, he says, yeah, maybe another time, G. I said, what do you mean? He goes, maybe another time, you know. They look busy. They look like they're having a conversation. I said, no, this is my family. This is the only family I got, Charles. Come say hello to him. Yeah, real quick. So as we approached the table, you could see he got really nervous for some reason. And he stands up right away, couldn't be more cordial. He says, hey, you know, nice to meet you. You know, good to meet you. I said, hey, this is my associate. And 1, 2, 3, 30 seconds?
Yeah, not very long.
30 seconds, done. And it was perfect. So he knew now I had these guys. If anything happens to me, if you're thinking about doing anything to me or stuff breaks bad, I wanted them to know I was that far gone in the case. I needed to have an escape plan because Louis was getting aggressive with me after that pager thing, you know, the text.
A lot of pressure.
And there was a lot of shit building up. So I wanted these guys to know. And I specifically wanted to get back to Louis. If you try to come at me, like, and I think I made a tape that said, like, hey, I got an army of guys that'll come. They'll fucking level this neighborhood. You guys won't exist anymore, you know? So I want him to see it. Now that Charlie saw these guys were real. But it was funny because about 30 minutes later, he calls me up. Giovanni, you can't fucking have those guys in the fucking Mandalay Bay with you if you're staying in the Mandalay. And I'm getting yelled at. I'm getting screamed. But you got to understand, from a tape perspective, evidence is great. Yeah. He goes, because listen to me. The guy Dutch seemed like a really nice guy, but you cannot look at those fucking guys. You can't have them in the Mandalay Bay when you're staying there. You look at them. Listen, I did time. I did a lot of time. I know him. I respect what they do. I was inside with them. I get it. But you got to put them downtown on Fremont Street with the rest of the fucking people like them. You can't. And he goes, because you got the Bulls, you got Metro, you got the FBI watching you, you got the local fucking cops out here. You can't walk around. You're on camera with these guys. And I go, I never thought of that, Charlie. And he's like, yeah, you fucking get him out of there. Put him downtown. And that night we went.
That hurt my feelings, actually. Yeah. Because he called me to be in a mob case, and I was like, yes. Yeah. No one's ever going to call me to be in a mob case. And he first called me, he's like, hey, want to be a mob case? I'm like, fuck, yeah. But I'm like, well, I don't know. I can't do that. I don't know about that. He's like, no, it's perfect. He explains the scenario to me, how they want to kill some people, and me being outside the mob will work. And Charlie blows me off. You know, he's basically like, you put them downtown. And that night, I carried a crescent wrench in my back pocket. There's a little bit of a story that I know I'm talking about this, right? So we never carried guns because it's hard to move them around. Like he said, you don't introduce a gun I mean, what if you're doing a dope deal and the guy's like, you got a gun? Like, yeah, I got a gun. Why you got a gun? Oh, I'm doing a dope deal. Let me see it. Are you going to hand him your gun? I don't know. I don't know what to do, you know? So, but I had a little bit of insecurity because of the kind of people I was dealing with. They always had ass batons, knives, this stuff.
Sure.
And so I took a crescent wrench and I, like a medium size, and I cut it down and welded the handle back together and polished it up. And I had it on a chain, like a chain wallet. And I had a crescent wrench in my pocket. And somebody got shot on a strip, so we were walking down the back alleys, right? Remember that? When the pimps
Russian,
were running the girls up on this
Russians.
like little retaining wall.
Yeah.
And Charlie was mad. He didn't like me. That's how I felt. And I was like, man, I finally got in a mafia case and they won't even talk to me, you know? And they're walking ahead of me a little ways. You and the other guys that were with you, the Italian guys, we'll call them.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to have a cigarette. I got a pack of cigarettes. I don't have a lighter. I'm tapping. And these guys are standing on the wall and they got the girls, the working girls there. Hey, man, you got a lighter? And they stepped down off the wall. They're wearing like mid-leaf leather jackets. They fit the part, some pimp guys, you know.
Oh, Eurasian pimps.
Yeah. And he says, yeah, I got a lighter and a knife. Oh, I'm not trying to be a hard ass. I really want to have a smoke because I'm frustrated. This guy don't like me.
Which one do you want?
I'm tapping the cigarette on here and I go, you want a cigarette? He's like, yeah. He takes a cigarette and he hands me a lighter and I go, you got a cigarette and I got a lighter and a wrench. And I just stuck it back in my pocket. He's like, oh shit, he's got a wrench. Lit my cigarette, blew it in his face and walked away. He told Charlie about that. And then all of a sudden he like accepted me, right?
Yeah, it was done after that. I said, yeah, it got ugly last night. Just sharing it.
And I wasn't trying to do anything other than just get a lighter, but just doing real stuff, just hanging out together and just being with each other, doing real stuff.
Because I told him.
Made it real.
Yeah, you were right. We got to be careful what we do because last night we stayed out. It was 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning when that happened. And I'm like, yeah, we're out till like, oh, Jesus Christ, Giovanni. I said, yeah, but Charles, when I get around these guys, the old me comes out. And it was a great conversation. So this had nothing to do with operations, but we kind of shared it into the case because I'm like, yeah, Charles, you got to understand when I get around these guys, the old me comes out. And that old Giovanni, I told you what I used to do and I told you how I looked and, you know, the whole biker thing. He knew because I had pictures of me, you know, all in my apartment, pictures of me and him at like weddings and christening, whatever it was, parties, dressed up in suits, you know. So he saw all that, you know, and he bit. And he's like, yeah, well, that's why I said, yeah, you were right. You know, we got to be careful what we do because last night could have got real ugly. Because these dudes were really, I mean, these Eurasian kids, and you told the story the right way, but he asked, which one do you want? And then he goes, like, I got a lighter. What do you say? I got a lighter? I got a lighter and a
lighter and a knife.
And which one do you want? And we're obviously outnumbered. And I'm giggling because now I come back over, like, this is not going to end well for you clowns. And I'm like, and not because we're cops, because we're legit, you know, gangsters. Like, that's what our mindset is. I'll fucking kill all of you. And he laughs and he goes to walk away. You had the dude's lighter. Or
I had his lighter. I kept it.
He took his lighter and the dude turns around. He's like, hey, where are you going? You got my lighter. Right. And now he came back over right in front of all his boys. And you could tell he was the head guy. And he goes, right. So I got two things. I got a lighter and a wrench.
That's right.
Which one do you want? Then the guy looks at us and he's like, I'll just take my lighter back. Like, there you go. You have a good night. And we kind of just walked off. But it was that story that Charlie was. And then by the time we were on a T3, a Title III wiretap, towards the end of the case, when I got the authorization to kill the guys, and the conversations were great because here's my capo calling, and they know that I got the hit. And yeah, my kid's going to do it. You know, it's a done deal. And the tapes are great tapes to listen to. They're hysterical because he's like, yeah, it's a done deal. And he's got these guys, they're like, they're going to come in on our iron horses. They're like angels from hell. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. So those guys out. Oh, okay, good.
Did they think you were Hell's Angels?
No, they never said. We told them we were part of the group.
Never.
That was just their
Never claimed that at all. It's just
their comparison they were making. Yeah.
Because Northeast HA Club and different clubs that are strong up there. That's what they know.
Yeah.
Right. So it was just something where and we were like, all right. Again, when you listen to those tapes, you go, they're believing everything that we're putting down. You know? And
wow.
I had a $160 shirt on. I wasn't wearing like soft color stuff or dressing like that at all. I mean, I actually was dressed down pretty good.
Yeah.
Nice.
But then again, when I got the hit to do it, I came back and told him, like, yeah, it's done. I think I came back to New York one night. And I was just like, I knew at that moment my career was fucked. Everything my wife told me came to fruition that night.
Really?
And he could see it in me. And again, it's not because they didn't care, but my case agents and my, everybody's at that point, it's like, wow, this is great. This is good shit. And a high five. But he understood operationally what I was going up against. You know, I knew, and I was like, dude, that's not good. And that's how we wound up. I think that's how we wound up at like 5 a.m. staying out, because it was like, he wouldn't let me go back to my apartment because he knew if I just sat there in my own shit,
I would just crazy, just nuts.
So you didn't have the opportunity to call a psychologist. You had to wait for that checkup from the neck up.
Yeah.
It might be 4 months out. You're never gonna go back and say, hey, Mr. Psychologist, Mr. Psychologist, can I come in and see you? I think I have a problem, because DNR, do not recommend.
Yeah, that was the hard stuff. You know, there's no shutdown process, and we don't get a pull of cord. It's not like, okay, that's enough, we're done. You're just going, and you think you're doing great, and then somebody else is like, now we're out of money. Got enough people on them, this is done. But your brain, your mind, your soul isn't ready to like, it's almost like starting over every time, right?
It is. And it's very like military guys. It's like you guys being deployed, right? You had that brotherhood and you have that sense of family there. But then when you go home and you're done your deployment and you have to go home and reintegrate yourself into your own lives, you feel you're missing that I'm missing that piece.
Oh, yeah.
My kids didn't know him until after we retired. I didn't meet his kids. Like, I knew all about them. He knew all about our kids growing up we were talking about, but I never met them, you know? And again, very much like military guys. I know about, but you're living in such a hyper masculine environment and a hyper vigilant environment. You don't ever shut down, you know? And when you do, it's like, so finally when I needed to decompress, what my father said came to fruition, where he's like, look, when you're done, nobody gives a shit about you.
Yeah.
But 1 or 2 guys do.
Yeah.
And somebody told me, if you're lucky to leave this job with maybe 5 solid dudes that'll always have your back, cut that in half, maybe 2, right?
Yeah.
Those other guys are there for you if you need to bend an ear,
Sure.
which is good, but we need to be there for each other more,
Yeah.
right? We need to be there not to go, man, he's a real shit show. G is out of control. G's a shit show. He could have done that at any time. Or I could have said, man, he's a shit show right now. Like, he's going through another thing with divorce and whatnot, and I just got to step away from him. Or, you know, the shit that I would dump on, he would, vice versa. You know, like, dude, I can't stay away from that dude. He's shot in the head right now. Like, he's not all there. Don't use him. Like, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it's very much like we got to look out for each other.
I got a question for you, Zach,
Yeah.
because we've been sitting over here talking about our experiences the whole time, and he keeps referencing, you know, like when you come back or like military stuff, what we're describing to you, the things we go through and these emotions and stuff, does that sound similar to like what happens to you guys?
It is very much so but see, I didn't have to take those hats off from within the same day. Mm-hmm. I didn't wake up with my kids, take them to school, and then have to put on a different hat. I put that hat on for like 3 months, 7 months at a time. And then I had to try and take it off. And so in some ways I was real rusty when I had to change hats.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't worn that hat in months on both directions. Right.
Yeah.
And so that part was real hard, understanding that when I stepped in with my family, I didn't really have a role there.
Yeah.
My wife had been running the house.
Yeah.
And here I come with my ideas and my expectations, and that doesn't look right. You shouldn't be doing that. And I'm just a giant wrench in their shit.
You're messing up the routine.
Oh, fuck yeah. and she's trying to be respectful of like, okay, dad's home now, right? He does have some different expectations, and we need to, you know, adhere to those as much as we can in a realistic way. And while she's trying to communicate to me, like, listen, motherfucker, that isn't how we do shit.
Yeah.
Pump the brakes, dad.
Yeah,
right? Because I don't want to be the hammer with my kid when I haven't seen him in 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, like, I've got to totally try to reconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, discipline and just, fuck, man. The first 4 years of being a parent, like, were the most difficult in my whole marriage. We've been together for 14 years, and we maybe argued once or twice a year until we had a kid.
Yeah.
And that shit, and then it was 3 times a week. Like, we've had very pragmatic conversations about divorce.
I'm sure.
I have half my bank account shifted over and said, if you want out, go. Right. Like, we've been there.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was learning that routine. I did 17 deployments with her.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of adjustment and learning a routine within a routine.
Yeah.
You know, the routine of coming home and trying not to be the hammer all the time or expect my way the moment I get home. Like, all right, this first week, just stay back and see where I can help out, where I can fit in here, because at this point I don't.
That's got to be an empty feeling. Like, you don't even know how to touch your kid anymore.
No,
You've been gone that long. Like, am I allowed to hug you, or do you want me to hug you?
And at those ages, from 0 to 3.5, which is where it was, when you're gone for 3 months, you come home to a different child.
Oh, without a doubt.
The development over 3 months at that age for children is like, he wasn't walking when I left. Now he's fucking running.
He really doesn't know you at all.
He doesn't fucking know.
Because his brain capacity when he was
has no memory,
and now toddler walking.
Yeah, he just knows that he can find me on an iPad sometimes.
Yep. And your spouse, it's hard on the spouse, I realize, because a lot of times the stories I hear in my own personal is, you do come home and she's like, look, we have a routine here and you're fucking it up.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, go back to doing something else. And that's after retirement, I still fall into that trap. So when I speak, it's like, I go out and relive it. It is triggering. So she asked me and I took it offensively. And my wife was like, look, you need to stay an extra day. So whoever's paying for your travel, you need to tell them, put another day on it, because I don't want you coming home. Because you're coming home and you're just crashing on the couch, or you're just fucking up our routine.
Yeah.
You're coming in trying to change shit, trying to be the hero, right? And again, we're not listening to the one person that's our clearest, loudest voice for us, and our biggest cheerleader is our spouse. We don't listen to them. And I'm still guilty of that sometimes, because it's like, man, this is sexy. This is good. This podcast is good. I couldn't make it today. It's on you because I got to go film the podcast. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whether you're out of it or you're doing this, you can run down those rabbit holes.
When you were gone for months at a time, was it easier not to call home?
Yes. I mean, it got to where sometimes our conversations felt a little bit forced and scripted. If I'd call her in the morning and I'd call her in the evening, we didn't really have much to say.
Don't know what to talk
just
about.
Checking out or checking in, or I'll tell you one of the hacks that I did learn, because it was very common within contracting to get extended. Right, like I'm gonna be gone for this. This is my come home date. Right, they make chains where they pull one off and like, oh, this is how many days till Daddy comes home.
Yeah. Oh no!
Then you get to call in 2 weeks before you're supposed to come home and pitch it. Right, and I learned that if I acted more upset than her, she would talk me down.
Support you.
But if I came to her asking and trying to pitch it, she'd go off the deep end and I'd have to talk her down.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it felt a little bit manipulative.
A little bit.
But I knew that, like, if I did that, if I came at it like, I'm super pissed, fuck this job, like they're making me stay again, God damn it, like I don't want to do this, and she'd be like, it's okay. Hey, like it's just one more week. We'll get through it. And I'd allow her to talk me down. But if I didn't do that, it was real hard to stay. And I thought she was going to leave me, because she's I'm sick of this. Like, it would be a complete reverse.
Yeah.
I was like, one of us is going to go high and to the right. If I do it, I can control it. Right.
Yeah.
If I let her do it, then I'm legit trying to fix whatever problem just happened. But yeah, it was real hard. And it got, where sometimes I didn't want to call home.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I was curious about, because, like I said, we're sitting over talking about the things we go through, and you're gone for this long period of times. I remember being gone even for like 9 or 10 days and being like, and just stay in my mindset. If you even pick your cell phone up, and sometimes I'd look like I should call, like I felt obligated, but I was like, if I call, it's going to fuck my head up.
Totally.
And then I'm going to have to go do this shit again, and I'm going to be worried about what was said and why we're arguing and what happened to the kid when I wasn't around again. And I can't imagine what it'd be like to be gone for months at a time and come home a complete stranger.
Yeah, I'm about to do an op. Should I call? Because I know I'm about to drive out into Kabul, or Taliban threatening the next Tet offensive, right? They were doing all kinds of shit out there. And it got real heavy toward the end, where she told me she wasn't expecting me to come home.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm just kind of waiting for the time you go and don't come back.
Right.
Oh, man.
And that got into my fucking head, right?
And if you didn't call, then when you were in it, I remember plenty of times when I was in it, it's like, oh, shit. When's the last time I told them I loved them? When, if I don't have the chance to do it again, shit, did I tell the kids? Did I talk to them? And I'm literally getting ready to go into something. Or I'd be in the middle of it and think about them. You go, oh, shit, if I don't make it out of this. Like, and you put yourself in a bad position, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember it got real heavy for me, because I didn't know what to do when I got out of the Marine Corps. My uncle was a sniper in Vietnam and died when I was 4. and had always been told how I resembled a lot of his characteristics, and but no one ever talks shit about the dead guy.
Right.
So I only ever heard the great things. And as I was thinking about and going, feeling like I may die over here. My wife may be right. What is my kid gonna think of me? He was a Marine sniper. He was a firefighter. Then he was a contractor. Then he worked for the agency job that I had. Like, no one's going to tell him that I sucked at CQB and I had to go ask all the SEALs how to do this shit, right? No one's going to tell him that I cheated on this thing to pass that, or how the sausage was made, right? Because at this point, I still don't feel adequate to an uncle that I've never met.
Right.
And so that was a big driving factor for Naked and Afraid. It was like, I want my kid needs to see me suck behind the scenes. Like, he's got to watch me fucking fail.
Yeah.
And cry on TV or fucking be covered in just failure. Like, that's what Naked and Afraid is. It's just getting slammed with every possible failure and uncomfortable thing you can imagine.
Right.
In hopes that if I did die, as I had been sort of diagnosed, I have felt anyway, maybe he would not feel the way I did. And see, like, Dad
like
pulled,
you couldn't stand up to
right,
your...
like Dad pulled some shit off, but it's because he just didn't stop.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it wasn't because I was great at it.
Yeah.
And I sucked at most of it. I just didn't quit until I got through it. And some of the things I didn't, like, I had failed businesses and I've had all the, not all of it did I stick with. Some things I was like, nope, that's not my path.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's...
But you can't, I learned, especially after when I retired, sometimes you can't control the narrative. You just have to go with it and see, and it's fear of the unknown. When I got unplugged and I retired, I'm like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And my wife was like, look, just relax. Fuck does that look like?
Yeah.
Relax. So she's like, yeah, just go do something different. Like, be an Uber driver. Like, do something to be an Uber driver. She says, well, you can't apply for a job. You can't tell people your background. You can't tell people your name.
Right.
The government, they just cut me loose when I started asking to be paid as a consultant. It's like, no, we don't do that.
I got a real generic thing that I'm allowed to put on my resume.
Yeah.
Real, like, field security agent. Right.
Yeah. What's that fucking? How's that going to?
No one knows what an FSA is.
It's like, I'm waiting to
Tier 1 guy.
Yeah. You're waiting to get called for the next training, right? You're waiting to get called for the next gig where you can be involved in something.
And I don't know the answer for that. And I've thought about that a great deal because, like, at 18, 19, I was running a sniper team through Fallujah in the era of the war where that was the news, right? And that purpose, that team, that operate, like, feeling like what I'm doing is it.
Yeah.
Like, this is what people are watching the news for us to win this fucking battle, or this AO is the scene. At 19, that bar was set. At a level that I'll never reach again.
You're talking 19 years old?
Yeah.
Holy shit, yeah.
Right.
And so how do I find another path that doesn't just feel gray? No matter what I'm doing, I'm never finding that level again. And I can't imagine how you guys would ever find the level of adrenaline, the level of purpose and excitement of going undercover for organizations like you've gone for.
I tried.
How have you navigated that now that you've retired?
For me... not to interrupt you,
skydiving, like
no, actually,
without a parachute.
No, I was working just fine on high levels of adrenaline for 20 years.
Yeah,
and then literally I went in on a Wednesday, and I'm gonna admit some insecurities. I put my hands on my face and I wept.
Yeah,
and a chief came walking by. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I don't know what I'm doing," and I quit on a Wednesday. By Friday, I was no longer on a job. I turned in all my gear and I moved to the mountains in Northern California, and I completely isolated and disconnected from almost everybody in my life. And I spent time in nature and, like, still pushing my limits, but, like, with no propensity for violence, no outside influence. It's just, how far out can I go? How long can I stay out there? How far...
Sounds like Naked and Afraid. Did you make it 21 days?
You got it, No, I did step on a hornet's nest, and I'd put my dirt bike in the back of my truck, and I'd drive my truck until I couldn't drive anymore, and then I'd ride my dirt bike down single track until I couldn't ride anymore, and then I would hike. And I was scouting for a spot, and I stepped on this bald-faced wasp nest. And I had the long hair still, and they got in my ears. One got my mouth stuck in my jaw and everything. That's the closest I think I had to Naked and Afraid experience. And I'm running through the mountains with myself screaming like, please stop. I would have jumped off a cliff if I could find one. It hurt. And then I had to walk back up and then get my dirt bike and ride it back up and put it in my truck and drive back down the mountain. But I spent some time by myself and just looking inside, and I finally found like what I would call peacefulness. I wasn't sweating so much when I was sleeping. I wasn't like so erratic. I mean, I felt like a meth head when I first left, just you couldn't calm down ever, like I was main veining Adderall or something. But once I finally accepted, like, I don't have to prove nothing no more. There's never enough anyway. Yeah. You can't do enough sniper stuff. No. You can't do enough mafia stuff. Yeah. There's never going to be a credit to you. No one's going to say, you're the toughest guy. Yeah. You're the baddest guy. Right. And once I got that right in my head, I just started to like look around the rest of my life and be like, oh, there you are. I finally see you, son. I finally see you, daughter. Like I wasn't paying attention, but I'm paying attention now. Yeah. I don't know. That's brought me peace.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I wish I had that peace. I don't have it yet. I'm not there yet.
What have you done?
So I sat around being angry for a while, and then I was teaching for the Bureau, and then teaching classes, and then doing special forces, teaching those guys for the Bureau, right? Mm-hmm. And then realized, okay, the speaking gig was great. I wrote a book for, because everywhere I spoke, people kept saying to me, you have to write a book. And it would make me even more pissed off because I'm like, now what am I, a narcissist?
Yeah, it feels weird to talk about about yourself.
It's really, it was, but then again, rewinding back to that therapist, that guy I had the connection with, the kid, the barbecue stuff, he was the one that used to say to me, listen, keep a diary. What am I, 13-year-old girl? I'm going to keep a journal, dear journal. But I did. I listened to him and I did it. And then as I heard these stories of, hey, you should, I had 5-subject notebooks over the years that I would write in, and just periodically sit down and write. And you can't do that in the world because that could be used as evidence sometimes,
for sure.
Mm-hmm. So you got to be careful. So I kept them all. And then finally somebody said to me, you should meet this guy. And I met a guy who helped me write it. And, I wrote the book, and he said, look, we have a series of books here. Like, you have like 5 different books. I said, I just want one book, I started doing public speaking for law enforcement and first responder stuff. And then I got into the world of treatment, mental health and substance abuse by accident. One of the guys we knew, Dr. Tom Coughlin, he's a retired NYPD guy. He did his thesis on deep cover, guys like us. And so I hit it off with him. And then he had introduced me to the recovery world. I was like, I don't see how it applies. But then I realized, okay, it's cathartic. It was good for me. And I got more involved in doing that. And then that's kind of where, but before I did that, I was still jonesing for the adrenaline. So I was doing overseas ops, trying to do crazy shit in the private sector, and then doing like, anti-human trafficking stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is good shit. And then some of the organizations we work with around the world from other agencies, I got tied up with that, doing bodyguard type stuff. And it was like over the top type of stuff. And I was really like, this is like black ops shit. I don't want to be involved in this.
Yeah.
So, the mental health stuff is where I'm at now. So it helps me, right? Sharing your stories. Having a podcast now is great for us because
y'all have one together?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So it's inside.
What's it called?
Inside the Life.
Inside the Life.
So that started, season 2 is a wrap. Season 1's a wrap. And it's out of the Mob Museum in Las Vegas. So when they asked us to do that, it was very uncomfortable, right? Very much so like you. And you sit here and you have a public platform and you're going to start telling your stories. But again, it's the same thing at treatment. If you share your stories with somebody else and they can identify with it and realize, oh my God, so I'm not weak. Yeah. Everybody else thinks the same thing. I'm just not processing the trauma, and you can help them get through it. It's hopefully the museum. We've been doing a show since last year, like 11 episodes in. Mm-hmm. So it's been great for us. Awesome. The Mob Museum in Vegas, they have an educational component to it, and they came and asked us to host it. So it's guys like us, guys and girls that were operatives or were inside the life from our perspective. But then we also have the other guys and girls from the criminal life, guys and girls that were mob guys and girls and associates and high level. And
we're just trying to tell the relationship between organized crime and law enforcement, because it's the Mob and Law Enforcement Museum.
Okay.
And they provided the platform, and we do something similar, like where we interview guests on the show, and it's kind of healing, to get out and talk about it.
I bet.
Yeah, because hopefully listening to our stories and listening to other stories that we interview, right, they learn a little bit more, and they learn and they'll hear you, right? And guys that have been on deployments will hear you talk about it and go, you know what, man?
That's
I've been keeping that quiet, and I thought I was the only one suffering through it. Or, there was a military guy that gave an interview, and I watched it on TV one day. Man, it clicked in me something fierce. And again, he didn't do covert ops. He was just a military guy. And he came home and he was talking about the high stress he was under. And then he was sitting on a couch, and man, it was like he was talking about my life. It was like he was in a room, and he said, my 2-year-old kid's on the floor and playing with his toys. And he was just so out of it. And he's like, what are you doing? What's the matter with you? What are you doing? Making all the noise. And the kid's being 2 years old. And he said, I'm looking at my kid yelling at him, what's wrong with you? And he says, I quickly realized there's nothing wrong with my kid. He's a 2-year-old boy. Yeah. He's doing what a 2-year-old boy should do. I'm fucked up. Yeah. For me to look at a little kid and go, what's the matter with you? There's nothing matter with it, I'm a 2-year-old kid playing with a toy. And then it clicked in me something fierce. And that was the driving force for me, behind me, to say, you know what, man, maybe I need to start putting in work.
Yeah. That was one of the biggest realizations for me, and about the reason that my wife and I were fighting so much. Mm-hmm. I had a very misguided expectation for what my son was even capable of doing. Mm-hmm. Right?
Oh, yeah.
What I thought he should be, he wasn't capable of sitting still at 2 years old. Right? He wasn't capable of understanding the logic behind the rules.
Right.
And so I'm here trying to explain these things to him, and he's just looking at me like, what the fuck? I just want to run.
Do it now.
Yeah, right? I'm like, you can't run in the street, you dumbass.
Yeah.
Car, hit, die. And he don't get that. He's just playing, just exploring his world, right? And it took me 5 years to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've got another one due this month.
Right.
Pray to God I can get it better this time.
Whoa, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I realized, I take the time now to acknowledge my fuck ups, especially my little guy and, all my kids. I acknowledge, listen, man, I'm not perfect. And they're like, Dad, we never expect you to be perfect. But again, it's that open communication and me saying, hey, yesterday, I'm sorry what I yelled at. Because right? We all go to bed with that guilt.
Yep.
That, man,
I did not
just
handle
suck
that
at this.
My best.
I just suck at this job of being a parent. I suck at being a parent. How did I become my old man? Right? And you start beating yourself up. But then you realize, you know what? If I own it and I sit down with them the next day and say, hey, I'm really sorry about yesterday. You were wrong for what you did, but I was wrong for the way I responded to that. And I just want you to know, I love you and I'm sorry. And I had no justification to act or to say what I did, or if I hurt your feelings. And, and at least there's some kind of healing, And the kids, again, our kids, military and first responder kids, man, these are the most resilient people,
They have to be.
And a lot of times I'll say to them, listen, I'm in this world, you'll listen to me and you'll be a leader, especially with these clowns that are out there today. There's a new generation coming up, man. I said, dude, if you put half the work in, you'll be a leader.
Yeah.
You won't have to be a sheep. You'll just be a born leader.
Half the time, all you got to do is show up.
That's all you got to do.
You outbeat 50%.
Yeah, you're done.
Right?
You're done.
Yeah.
But hopefully it's again, sharing what we share on our podcast and what you do. It's hopefully they'll listen to it and they'll say, okay, glean something from it. Our biggest, when we educate people, listen, not everybody's going to do ops. Mm-hmm. Like he said, you might be a support. You might be an analyst. You might be a supervisor. Well, maybe that's be a better leader, be an effective leader.
Yeah.
Be a better support analyst. Even though you're not the guy eating the bowls of macaroni in a restaurant, I need your back. You need to have my back.
Yeah.
You need to be out there doing the analytical part. You're saving my ass. You're building, the analytical part. I try to empower everybody when I do my presentations. I go, look, I'm going to tell a story of an undercover world, but whatever your job is, whatever your function is, just apply it to your purpose, whatever your skill set is, apply what I'm saying to your skill set, So hopefully it encourages them.
I hope so too.
They do something with it,
I hope so too. And I really appreciate you guys coming in.
Yeah, man.
And sharing your stories. It's been awesome, exciting story.
Yeah, I feel like it's been 10 minutes, but it's been how long? We've been sitting
3
here.
hours.
Has it really?
Yeah.
3 hours already? Holy shit.
I'm fucking sweating through my shirt. It's definitely been 3 hours.
You got the hot light on you. That's why I didn't take that seat.
Oh, okay.
Have you written a book?
I did, yeah.
What is the name of your book?
Giovanni's Ring, My Life Inside the Real Sopranos.
And you'll have a podcast.
Yeah, we had the podcast out. Yeah, that's been, and again, I guess it's then the dynamic of working together. It's our way of still doing what we do. And, it's still our way of telling a story. It's been, dude, being on this side of the camera and having a camera point.
Pretty healing.
It is, man.
I spent the last 8 years not mentioning it to a single person I lived around. Mm-hmm. We don't talk about it. My kids don't talk about it. We all kept it secrets. not for safety, because I was afraid that people's perception of me would change. I'm a barber. I own a barbershop now.
Nice.
And I got a couple other businesses, and I was like, this will kill my business off. No one trusts any government people.
Right.
They'll think we did all the stuff like on the show, the TV shows and the movies, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Now that we've got this platform at the Mob Museum with Inside the Life, when we're starting to talk about it, people's perceptions are a lot better than I thought they would be. Like, even like I have people coming in the shop and they're like, oh man, like, you know, that's crazy you did that. And one guy's like, I've been in prison 4 times. My mom's been in prison for murder, and you're telling stories of the street with genuineness and honestness, and you're not over embellishing. So it's been pretty rewarding. That, I mean, probably much like what you're doing is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's telling the stories that guys and girls that have done it or are still doing it, that can't speak about it. At least we're their voice, and we're saying, look, we're not the cream of the crop by any means. We still make a lot of mistakes, like you know. You have a young bunch of guys that are coming up doing the same job you did in the military. So it's like, hopefully they'll listen to your podcast and listen to your message and glean something from it, you know. And that's all I'm looking for.
That's the hope.
Yeah, it's not about fame and fortune. It's just, listen, man, sometimes somebody along the way said something that struck a nerve in me. And now it's just pay it forward kind of thing, you know. It doesn't matter how much money you make. Sometimes that's the reward. That's the payment, you know.
Yeah. It is therapeutic as well to really think about what you've gone through, analyze it, and speak to it in an honest way, in a place that you can be honest, right? Where before maybe you couldn't, and yeah. I
can't tell you how many times I get a guy or girl, a veteran or a first responder that's right at their. I mean, they are literally on the edge of a cliff, and they are literally like, I just need a reason not to hang up with you and end it, you know, and that's where they're at, and to have a conversation, help them get the help that they need, or just to guide them in the right way that they need, you know, and let them know, dude, I get it. Like, I might not have taken a life. I might not have been shot myself, or whatever the case may be. I understand. Trauma is trauma, no matter how you paint it, right? Oh, yeah. And again, it's not like a lot of guys, I didn't do half the shit that you did, G. I'm not as badass as you are. That's bullshit. You know, trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter.
There's a lot of misperception that if they didn't see combat, or they didn't do this, the one thing that they feel they should have. And I think a lot of guys chased combat for that reason. Oh, yeah. Like you do all the training, you go to football practice for 4 years and you never get to play a game.
Yeah, there's no validation.
They want to play the game.
Yeah. Right.
And they re-enlist and they chase the next thing until they get it. And I've said the quote on here before. I don't remember where I heard it, but young men dream of old men's nightmares.
No kidding.
Like,
well said.
Powerful, man.
That hit me. Like, when I heard that, I was like, God damn, that stings. Like, yes, I did. And now I'm like, why did I want that? Why did I ask for that?
Yeah, that's wild, man.
That was a good one. Stupid.
I'll get this wrong, but you know the one that says, he who stares in the abyss too long?
Oh, what is the rest of it?
You know, yeah, it's a like, man, really, what's his name?
It's Jordan Peterson that I heard say it. I'm sure he was quoting it, but I felt like it was, he who stares into the abyss too long
shall be careful he doesn't become a monster himself, or something
right,
like that.
Yeah, something
but
like that. But
it's what you said, that kind of takes me there too. Like,
yeah.
Young men dream of old men's nightmares.
Yeah, that's it.
Ooh,
that's powerful.
Yeah, that one stuck with me for sure. Thank you guys for coming in. And
no, thanks, Zach. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for your service, man. I really appreciate it.